February 10th, 2014. Thank you, Madam President. Councilman Frazier?
Here.
Councilman Lance, is you? Councilman Moss?
Here.
Councilwoman Seymour? Here. Councilman Stiver?
Here.
Councilman Percassi?
Here.
Councilwoman Jordan?
Here.
Madam President, you have 6 members present.
Thank you. At this item on the agenda is proposed installation of the small robot body on Telegraph Road, Millennial.
Madam President, Mary Carlock, our landscape architect, Parks and Rec Department, which handles median and right-of-way plannings and such, will speak to this item.
Good evening, and glad we're all made it through January. Now we're into February, so spring is technically next month. That's what I keep saying. Tonight we're looking at a proposal where Shelley has been working with Kamal, which is an Italian robot company that's based in Italy, and they have their North American headquarters right here in Southfield. So they are located on both sides of Telegraph Road between 8 and 9 miles. They have a proposal to place one of their, a robot body as industrial art in the center median of Telegraph Road, adjacent to their building. But from our perspective, it would be part of our Welcome to Southfield landscaping and signage, so it would be just south of our welcome sign in front of their headquarters in the center median, just north of 8 miles, about halfway up once you get up the hill, and yet before where we have our south welcome sign. It would highlight the beginning of the Southfield, what we're trying to promote as Southfield Technology Corridor. Southfield, Telegraph Road is a state highway, so that's not our property, so we approach MDOT and their placemaking and their Oakland Technical Service Center staff about placing it here initially. They don't have anything like this anywhere, but they have other artwork in the median, like on Woodward Avenue, and they even have old farm artifacts up in Macomb County on some of those highways. So we sat down with their placemaking people at our Southfield office here, and they did issue us a permit. So we weren't able to, really bring it to you or do anything unless we knew we could get a permit. So they did issue us a permit. It would be, and you can pass this around, it would be about 8 foot tall when it's fully extended, about 3 to 4 foot wide, and they would construct a concrete footing in the median, much in the same way that we would put median signage footings in for signs. And then they would provide landscaping around it. Let's see. The initial installation would be, this season. Once we get all of the details worked out, we are going to be working with the legal department to develop an agreement between the city and Kamal regarding the liability issues for the installation. We have had our signs out on Telegraph at the north and south entrance for 25 years. Neither of those have ever been hit, but we have had some of our maintenance workers hit in the median. So we want to make sure that we address all these possibilities before it is installed. So this is a picture of, a Photoshop type idea of what it might look like with landscaping around it and at that location. In the future, if we wanted to relocate our sign in front of it, maybe talk a little bit about Technology Corridor, that's a possibility as well. Let's see. That's a pretty small proposal here. We want to just kind of get a consensus from you to proceed with the company. We do have our guests here if you want to Stand up, we have Marty Kinsella and David Reed, both from Kamau, and they might tell you a little bit about their company if they want to come up and answer questions.
And before they make a comment, Shelley, can you just summarize the city's involvement with the company? I know when I started here in 2008, the one building was completely empty, and I'm getting to what economic development assistance we've done and the number of jobs and such.
Certainly, and I guess the gentleman from Canal can speak about their growth, but the city of Southfield, the state of Michigan, and Oakland County have been working with Canal to help expand their facilities. We have worked with them and completed a brownfield redevelopment plan for their site. When I first started working here, one of their offices was completely vacant. It was an empty warehouse, and they originally were looking to relocate to Plymouth. The city met with them, and they decided to keep their location here, and they've grown and expanded to both sides of Telegraph Road. And, maybe you could talk about how many employees they have at the location.
And can you give us your name and business address for the record?
Well, good evening. My name is David Reed from Kamau. Business address is 21175 Telegraph Road, Southfield, Michigan. Thanks for this opportunity to talk to you informally about this proposal. On behalf of Kamau, we're very pleased to be here and to have this opportunity to promote not only Kamau, but to promote automation and high technology in the city of Southfield. We really like the idea of promoting automation and manufacturing in the community because it generates interest in the area and it generates interest in our industry. And we think this piece of artwork in the medium of Telegraph could go a long ways to bring that recognition to our company and to this area. As far as Kamau, in North America, we're 1,600 employees in the southwest Michigan area, or southeast Michigan area, and the headquarters, as Mary said, is there at 8 Mile and Telegraph, where we have also our R&D center, our North American engineering and project management centers are located there on both sides of Telegraph. And as Shelley said, the facility on the west side of Telegraph, which is now a fully refurbished R&D center with laboratories and a growing technology division that Martin can speak briefly about, was in 2011 a vacant building, which we renovated and have over 100 people just in that building working on new technologies and automation systems for our customers. So thanks again for this opportunity. I'll let Martin say a few words.
Good evening, Martin Kinsella from Kamau. Like Dave said earlier, we've, as a company, we've invested significantly both in facilities and also in terms of people and resource, in terms of the area there in Southfield. We've now got a fully operational laser lab, fully operational metrology lab, fully operational vision lab, etc. We've had a number of you, so finally have actually come down and seen the facility. We've revamped it completely. It's now easily world-class in terms of its facilities and the actual output in terms of the technology we're developing, both for ourselves internally and also for the local OEMs, colleges, schools, etc. We're working very closely with the big three. We've also, you may have seen at the Detroit Motor Show, we actually put a display in the Ford stand, which is the biggest stand that's ever been put in any motor show anywhere in the world, and we were key component of that. And that was a good example, and that's where we want to try in terms of the attraction of the robot, is that we see the future in terms of engineering and manufacturing key, and it's key that we attract the children and, let's say, the students of the future. And by doing these type of activities, it's key for us in terms of the future, because we need to attract young students back into engineering and manufacturing. And it was clear in terms of the show down there at the Cobo, how enthralled the school children and various students were in terms of engineering, because people have got a different perspective currently in terms of engineering and manufacturing. And what we're trying to do is promote cutting-edge, leading innovation, strategic movement forward with the big three and other automotive manufacturers for the future, because that's where we see our future. We're key component of that for the next number of years, and we want to work closely with the council and et cetera to long may that continue. Okay? Any questions or?
I think there are some questions yet.
Yep.
And we'll begin with Councilman Moore.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys again. We did a tour of Kamau last year, a delegation of us from the city, including Mr. Percassi, I think Mr. Frazier was there, Mr. Siver, and it's just so interesting the things that are going on right here in the city of Southfield in its industry, and actually have that same model robot sitting on my desk at home. So this is, I for sure absolutely encourage this. I'm excited by it, and I hope that this type of it excites other businesses along that tech corridor to take ownership of the median and beautify the median here in the city of Southfield. My question is that when we were in the board meeting, there was a countdown clock, and you told us you wouldn't let us know what it was counting down to, and I don't know if it's reached the zero. I was wondering, it's still on my mind, all these months later, what is it counting down to?
It was counting down to the F-150.
Okay.
So we actually had a significant date in January with Ford Motor Company on the F-150, which is the new aluminium truck was launched at the show there in Cobo. And what we didn't know at the time when we actually put that clock in was the launch on the 13th of January in front of the global TV that we would be part of that display.
Yeah.
So yes, the countdown's actually got to zero and now it's up the other side.
I remember it was a while away and you wouldn't tell us what it was counting down to, so now I'm excited to finally have an answer. It kept me up at night.
So, well, we're glad of that, and in our facilities now we're actually manufacturing small numbers, but in terms of working with Ford, in terms of the new product, etc.
Great.
Okay.
Mayor Lawrence.
Just a question. I know we're going to do a contract regarding the liability. Are we going to do a contract for landscaping? Is that part of the agreement that Kamau will maintain the landscaping? How does that work?
Yeah, just talking to clearly we need a contract, because we need to talk about some of these issues and maintenance and so forth. My understanding from Mary is that because we do the landscape maintenance on the median, we would probably just go ahead and pick up, once they install the landscaping, we'll pick up the maintenance. But in terms of, we want to talk about issues like maintenance of the structure itself. So what if there's graffiti on it? And so those kind of things we will work out. But I do think, and Mary can confirm that, but I think that we're going to do the maintenance.
We're going to maintain it with our contractor, because we're out there every week. We already have a good contract and all kinds of insurance, then they don't have to, do that.
Well, I'm excited about this. I just hope that this is the first, and you are a leader, and other cities come on board. It's clearly a symbol of an innovative symbol of technology and manufacturing. So I'm excited about it. The other thing that I wanted to, because everything is timeless, there will become a time when this will be antiquated, and you will have something bigger, better, and amazing. So, I see it as eventually kids will drive by and say, wow, that's the way they used to make things. So, right now it's the hottest thing smoking, and I know you're so excited about it, but I can see it even becoming a part of the history of this industry. So I'm excited about it.
I mean, on that point is, in terms of the display, down at the Cobo where we linked industry to the motor show, and that's exactly what people were saying, the fact that this is the first in terms of this, what we've actually done there. Now, will it be, what will happen next year, we just know it's going to, but what we had there was we had actually 8 weeks to put that together, which was
It was very impressive.
Yeah, so in terms of this, what we've got is what we call an end effector on the end of the robot, so there'll be a structure on the end of the robot. Lifetime, we've got robots installed 20 years and they're still performing. Yeah.
Well, we'll make the others in the tech corridor jealous.
Yeah.
And when it becomes antiquated, we'll upgrade it. Just keep on being jealous.
Okay. Well, we like that.
Councilman Frazier.
Yeah, this question is more to our employees than it is to, that is, are we going to put signs that designate that this is our technology corridor? Because people that coming in from outside that don't know that, we should put similar to wayfinding signs, so that people know that they're in a technical corridor.
If I may, Madam President. The 2008 master plan created a concept of the technology corridor. The sub-area plan, or as we move forward on a new master plan, the Telegraph technology corridor is one of the sub-areas that we want to focus on and actually come up with a branding and a theme. I think the Economic Development Committee, the conversations I've had with each of the three council members privately, it has come up there as well. There was some discussion as part of the $500,000 for economic development being earmarked for helping establish that brand and that identity. I think this is a good beginning, and the real progress is getting MDOT off this position on what could go in that right of way. That was a substantial amount of work, and the company and their lobbyists really need to be commended for getting MDOT to move off that policy.
It would be, it seemed to me that it would be just a stroke of good advertising if we could convince the businesses in the technology corridor to make that part of their, come up, part of Southfield's technology corridor. Or something that each one, it would be a common theme that each business could add on to their name, so that they're helping us advertise the technology corridor, so other businesses that move in might want to be in there.
Cover your tagline.
Yeah.
That's
it. Yeah.
Councilman Senior.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's red. Is it gonna be red?
You're red,
Okay,
yes.
it is red, okay. Because when I saw before, maybe I thought it was gonna be black or something, you didn't notice, but it stands out, and I like that. It's going to draw attention, and I think that's very good. It will be, motivate people to ask questions, and I love the idea. I hope, I know you can't plant flowers in the winter, but you can do something, red feathers or, excuse me, something to draw more attention to it. As you see in that picture, you took the picture. I think it's really cool. I like the idea a lot. It will draw attention, and I love it. I'm delighted that it's in a bright color. I just think that's great, so I'm all for it. Good idea.
Yeah, I was going to state that one of the good things to come about because of the fight of the median at North of 12 model there was that we met in the garage, and Mary was there at the time, and they sent down someone from the state, and we were talking about the sprinkling system and all that. I just threw on that we'd also like to have a permit to do this, and she said there'd be no problem. So I think that kind of greased the avenue, I guess, to get this thing done, because they said as long as it's so, the distance between the two curbs, is that what it is, Mary? The
Yeah.
distance between the two curbs?
Out of the kind of the fall zone.
Yeah, that they would give us a permit for it. But I want to thank staff for following through on that, because that gives us, we have people right up the line there that are outdoor art people, and they would just love to maybe put that thing out in front of their office buildings. I do want to thank you people from Island to be here. I appreciate you being here. Appreciated the tour that you gave. It was very, very interesting. Good luck to you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for all your support and help. For anybody that hasn't already been able to visit, come out. We'd be glad to have you out. People that came in the past got a little model of the robot. We brought a few with us tonight. I'm not sure there's enough for everybody to get one, but you're welcome to come down and visit us and pick up the robot model when you come down.
Any of your robots remove snow? I want to borrow one.
Martin's working on that.
I have one last comment, and Shelley, we've been talking about making sure that we get the word out of what's happening in our community, and this may be applying a candidate for press release.
Yeah, absolutely. sure everybody knows about it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I just want to mention that Lee Schultz also helped with the permit, and she was here for any questions, and that Kamau supports and sponsors a robotics team, which first robotics for high school students in the area.
Yeah, which we see as a key, again, a key component for the future. Yep.
Okay, we'll move to the second item on our agenda, that's the presentation for redevelopment ready application.
Well, we can give it consent on that?
Excuse me?
We can do a roundabout of consent?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what she asked. Yes.
Yes, yes.
No, not a motion.
Oh, we just need a consent, I thought everybody weighed in on it. Okay, we'll move to the second item on our agenda. And that'll be Ms. Simmons.
Good evening, everybody. As you know, the city of Southfield was previously certified as a redevelopment-ready community under the Michigan Suburbs Alliance. And in 2011, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation purchased that program, and they've been going through the process of reevaluating communities. The city of Southfield, along with 6 other communities, were the first 7 to be evaluated, and we're all in the process of having that evaluation done. And so with us today is Michelle Parkenden. Michelle. She's going to present the findings from the report, and then Fred and myself will be able to answer any questions if there are follow-ups. So Michelle.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Parkinen. I'm a planner with the Redevelopment Ready Communities program at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and I was part of the team that evaluated the city of Southfield for the RRC program. Okay. So the RRC program evaluations are based on 6 best practices. And our team goes through all of the documentation that was provided by City of Southfield staff. We observed several meetings, went through stakeholder interviews from business owners and developers, and looked at all of the development materials that were provided by the city. And we provide a scorecard for each best practice. Green indicates that the best practice components are being met by the community. Yellow indicates some of the best practice components are in place, but additional action might be required. And then red indicates the best practice component is not present or is outdated. So best practice 1.1 is community plans and public outreach, and we're looking at all of the planning documents. And the city of Southfield has a long history of planning. And the master plan currently meets our best practice criteria, and the city is working on updating the master plan over the next year. It'll be important to identify redevelopment strategies in that update as they are currently in the existing master plan. So we've got green on those 2 evaluation criteria. The governing body has adopted a capital improvements plan. The city has a drafted capital improvements plan, but that needs to be formally adopted and cover the required 6-year timeline that is required in the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. The governing body has adopted a downtown development plan. As we know, the city has downtown development plans, but as the city does not have a traditional downtown, we did not evaluate Southfield on that criteria. And we've got that the governing body has adopted a corridor improvement plan.
Apparently,
is this the old?
Apparently this is the old plan.
Okay, that's okay. You're green on that. The city has adopted corridor improvement strategies and plans, so that is green. Okay, and then the second best practice criteria under best practice 1 is public participation. So under the best practices, we require that a public participation plan be adopted. And that's identifying stakeholders and outlining goals for public participation and seeing what techniques have worked for the city and how are you going to go about achieving public input. And Southfield has gone above and beyond as far as achieving public input and reaching out to its citizens and business owners. We are just looking for that to be formalized in a plan. Okay, best practice 2 is zoning policy and regulations, and as you can see, all green for the city. The city has adopted a zoning ordinance that reflects the master plan. There are some priority districts where the zoning encourages the type of development that is outlined in the master plan. There are flexible zoning techniques that allow for infill development. There are some flexible parking strategies. We do suggest adding additional graphics and illustrations just to improve the user experience, but all of the best practice criteria are being met. For the development review process, best practice 3.1 is the site plan review policy, and this is correct. We're just looking for some of the guide to development information to be added to the city's website. We're looking for one area on the website where all development materials are located, so it's easier for residents and developers to find that just at the drop of a hat. The community tracks development projects. You're annually reviewing your fee schedule. Your zoning ordinance clearly documents the process, so you're doing all of those things very well. For the site plan review process, Southfield obviously has qualified intake staff and a clearly documented internal review policy, really working through joint departmental meetings to get input from all involved parties and really trying to make that a smooth process. You're encouraging developers to seek input before projects start and getting that important citizen input before those projects are getting underway. Again, engaging in the site plan reviews, and where we gave yellow is suggesting that the city would consider revising the site plan review process to maybe lessen the number of meetings that are required to get those site plans approved. And you're annually reviewing the successes and challenges with the site plan review procedures. On education and training, we've got all green. Southfield has a dedicated source of funding for training for elected and appointed officials as well as staff. You're identifying the training needs, and when you're tracking that attendance, you're identifying gaps in training and setting those trainings up where needed. Board and committee members are encouraged to attend trainings, and you're conducting annual joint meetings to discuss development issues, which we think are very important. For education and training, for recruitment and orientation, this is up to date as well. We're looking for Southfield to set expectations for boards and commission positions. So right now you're accepting resumes and letters of interest for board and committee positions. We're looking to have perhaps an application or at least a listing of desired qualifications for positions, and maybe giving a brief explanation about what each board and committee is all about, what the duties are, and developing an ethics policy. And then we're also asking that you provide a hard copy orientation packet to council members and new ZBA members, so they have all of that development information at their fingertips. Okay, this has been updated, please, yes. Okay, so best practice 5 is the redevelopment ready site. And for this best practice, we're asking communities to identify and prioritize redevelopment sites. And we've actually got all green on this, the second one. The community forms a steering committee for prioritized redevelopment sites. Your economic development committee serves that role by discussing and prioritizing those sites, so that is a green right now. That steering committee is gathering that background information to provide to developers. Clearly, city has gone above and beyond visioning some of those sites and has noted what resources are available for those sites. We're just looking for a more detailed property information package to be developed for at least your top priority sites. So we're looking for all of the possible background information rather than just like a one-page sheet. And then actively marketing those sites as well. For community prosperity, economic strategies is the first best practice. Southfield has adopted economic development strategies as part of the master plan, and the Economic Development Committee is regularly reviewing and discussing those economic development strategies. So we just ask when you go through your master plan update that be continued and to continually look at those. And final best practice, marketing and promotion. The community has developed a marketing strategy. We're just looking at how a community evaluates or markets and promotes itself. So we're just asking for this, gave yellow, that Southfield Community Relations Department, DDA, and outside marketing firm coordinate future marketing efforts to enhance Southfield's image as a desirable place to live. And the marketing strategy should also focus on how those redevelopment sites are going to be promoted and marketed. So next steps for Southfield. We ask that within 30 days, council adopt a resolution indicating that you are ready to proceed with Redevelopment Ready Communities program. The city will work to implement the actions needed to meet those best practice criteria. We'll also provide quarterly progress reports that staff will fill out just to update us on if there's new documentation that might help the city meet those criteria. And then the last step is certification. So if you have any questions.
Before you move forward, Michelle, would
Sure.
you need your business address?
Oh, sure. It's 300 North Washington Square, Lansing, Michigan.
Any questions about it?
Michelle, I guess when it says best practice 6.2, I don't know what, is that referring to something that I'm not aware of, or, I'm on page, best practices, findings, best practice 6.2, marketing and promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who sets the standard of marketing and promotion? To what extent? Is it by the amount that is spent, the amount you cover, programs in place? How do you rate those, in other words?
We're looking at how a community is marketing and promoting itself and coordinating with other entities in that marketing and promotion, so your DDA, Chamber of Commerce. We're not looking at how much you spend, but I have no idea how much the city spends.
When you work with Chamber of Commerce and Southfield Chamber of Commerce and you have public hearings at least twice a month. When we have, for example, Evergreen Road development, we held a hearing just to let people know what's happening, plus everybody in the vicinity has got a note, business community as well as those who live in. And when we did Lasher Road, we did the same thing. So I just wonder, to what extent are you marketing these things?
I think what the RRC program is looking for the city to formalize some of our documents on all the activities that we're currently doing. So in terms of the items that were yellow or red, my department, along with planning and community relations, we're working just to formalize all the good things that we're currently doing already. So when it talks about internal marketing plan, we currently have a process and things that we're doing, but we're just formalizing it and putting it into a document. So all the things that we're talking about.
What I'm asking is that, I have a businessman who asked, he put a Farmington Hills thing out. I don't even know what I did with it. Oh, here it is. He gave me this at a meeting and said, why don't you do something like this? So I'm taking him this tomorrow.
Right.
Now, this is all marketing, Southfield business, place to call home. Calendars, everything's mailed out to everybody. This is mailed out to everybody. So, and I'm just wondering, trying to establish a linkage to the public. I think that Southfield does a good job. Total Living Commission meets, and the mayor just had a meeting with the people, residents. Then we just had all the subdivisions in, both for barbecue, and then we had them here on a program. So I guess, I just know what we do, and I'm just wondering at what level are your expectation is to get not a green on this? That's what
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how to get there.
Again, it's just we'll be green once we put the document together that highlights all the things that we're doing. So we just need to put together a written plan internally.
Well, do we have time to do this?
Yes, this is something that I will be working on. I've already been gathering the information. I've been working with Terry and with Michael Mannion from Community Relations, and together we're going to address all these items just to formalize what we're currently doing. We're planning on creating a spot on our website called Southfield, Destination Southfield, which will house, we have a package that we put together for some of our larger new tenants that just moved in that speak to all the great things to do around the city. That will be on there as well for development, you know, how to go about, even though we have an outstanding website that's very clear to most users, we're going to have a special section that's just going to bring everything together.
Then we have, Shelley, and then we have the 8 Mile Road Association that does all the 8 Mile Road, you know, marketing that. And you just seen tonight where Kamal is here, we're marketing that. I mean, I don't really, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how we're.
I think we should have everything
To what
wrapped up.
extent? I'd like to know how you're graded, because I think we do a great job.
Jennifer, you want to come in?
Give us your business.
Sure.
We thought about it.
Jennifer Rittrink, 300 North Washington Square, Lansing, Michigan, 48913. I work with Michelle and oversee the Redevelopment Ready Communities program, and really this is about looking at what marketing efforts you already have and where are you concentrating your efforts and your strategies. Are there different groups in the city doing different things or marketing the same thing, and how are you working together? Another way to think about this when it comes to even the public participation is kind of like succession planning. Shelley and the other folks here are doing great things, but what if one of them is to win the lotto tomorrow and we can, can business as usual in Southfield go on, or do you need to stop and think about what was that person doing or how did they do it? We're looking for you to kind of internally document some of these things so that you can continue business as usual and be successful even when you have turnover.
For example, again, the city center.
Right, you have marketing for city center, you have the DDA doing things, you have the chamber doing things, and we just want to, and we're just looking to see how you're coordinating your efforts.
I just think we do an exceptional job for the money that we have to spend. I mean, that has to be taken into consideration. We send a message back to the governor to send us their money back. But anyway, I went all green.
I agree. Councilman Frazier.
Yes, on the boards and commissions, if I interpret that what you've written down here correctly, so the city should revise the boards and commission application to list general responsibilities of each board and committee and experience occurred. Today we have a generic form that has a list of all of the different boards and commissions that people can apply for. If we do what you say, it sounds like we have to have an individual form for every one of the boards. Or how do we write down?
I just want to add one thing. When we were submitting all the documentation, the city was going through the election process, and we had some staff that retired, so it was hard for us to gather all the data and information that we needed to submit to the RRC program during their reevaluation. And we wanted to have this meeting and then gather up a little bit more information and resubmit it. The clerk's office supplied us with all the definitions of all the boards and commissions. Once we submit all that information back to the committee, that'll be green. We currently have all of those things in place. So we wanted to have the presentation come forward and clean up a couple of extra items that we had to submit and resubmit everything at once.
And we actually have a nice template of a sample form. It's a one-page application with the back page, kind of has just a couple sentences on each board and commission. So,
And if you already have it, and you can submit it with your first progress report, and then if that criteria is being met, then that color will change to green.
Well, the form, we'd have to redesign the form. Even if we did what you suggested with the template of a sentence or two of each board, we don't have room now for all the boards and commissions on it, so.
And you know, your major committees or commissions, I mean, you want to set some expectations, so when someone is applying, they know what they're getting themselves into, and they know what's expected of them if they were to get that appointment or seat.
They should be able to go online and read about the boards and commissions, because we allow people to apply for up to 3 different boards and commissions. And, you know, I don't want to make it any more complicated. It sounds here like you're going to complicate the issue there are some things that we need to tighten out.
And we don't want to make things, or have the city have to make things any more complicated. As long as the city can demonstrate how the evaluation criteria is being met, you can meet that how you see fit. You just have to tell us how you're meeting it.
Okay.
I would like to mention that we also, before we put a person on the board, we have a committee that interviews each one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
As well, so.
And we did note that in the report.
Yeah. It does say that we do interview people.
And I don't think this was mentioned before, but it's worth saying, we currently do not have any certified communities. So as you can tell from your report, you had a couple of yellows, you're very close to it. As of right now, with the new statewide program, we don't have a certified community, so you're not far off yet.
I'm not debating that point. The point I'm saying is that it ought to be easy enough for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I read here, it sounds like it was going to complicate our process. I'm not worried that we're ready or not ready, but I just don't want to make it more complicated.
Yeah, no, we don't want to make things more complicated.
Right. We want this to be a very straightforward process, and we want things to be extremely transparent. That's one of the goals of the program, so the less complicated, the better.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Councilman.
Yeah, if we're certified, if we're meeting the criteria, does this help us score higher on the EVIP for the governor's dashboard?
Not currently at this time.
I think it should be tied to it, you know, if they're part and parcel to one another, we're doing all the things right, I would like to see that we get money for it.
How,
You should share
if
that.
a collaborative effort in marketing and public relations were to come out of it, we would list that as a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
If we were part of a regional group
I
promoting
yes.
the affordability of our housing stock, or the quality of life, if we were doing something with, Ann Arbor, Macomb, that would be, something we would include in that report.
Okay. My recommendation is, if this program expands and if cities actually get certified, that hopefully that EVIP can be tied into it, because the communities that are doing it right should be acknowledged for it, and as my colleague said, should get the money due to those communities to fully succeed.
Councilwoman Seaman.
Yeah, I'm kind of just puzzled about why is it important that anybody be certified, and who are you to tell the whole community? I'm saying justify your reason for being. Who are you to tell us why we are important or what we're doing right? Where did all this come from? And
Back
you're
under
kind of setting everybody up and saying, we have to meet your standards. We have standards too, but we have to meet your standards, and what...
So back under Governor Granholm and the Michigan Land Use Leadership Council, that she brought together lots of different experts in land use and government and private and public sector. And there was a specific recommendation in that report, was in Chapter 4, that said the private and public sector come together in consultation and develop a set of redevelopment readiness standards. And originally this program was put together to kind of balance brownfield development in our urban cores and greenfield sprawl development. And so that was originally the intent of the program when it was put together under the and the Michigan Suburbs Alliance actually took that recommendation and initiated it in their member communities, strictly here in Southeast Michigan. We saw the benefit at the MEDC in MSHDA, who helped purchase the program to take it statewide for other communities, coming private and public sectors. So the private sector is getting what they need, the public sector is still getting what they need from developers and real estate. We changed the best practices. We spent about 8 months working on those from, if any of you were around the previous program. And we took those standards kind of back to the basics. One of the things we did, are you in compliance with some of our state laws? Because we do have limited funds at the state, and why should we be spending money in communities that are not in compliance with state laws? So that is one reason. Two is we're trying to proactively market to the private sector the communities that are already doing good things. And so while we're evaluating communities, we spend a lot of time working with developers, because what's the good of the certification if the private sector does not understand what that means? And so that's another major component that we use.
I remember when the talk was about sort of controlling sprawl. I remember that very clearly, but I just wondered, because it seems like you're the authority and everybody has to come under your umbrella to be considered legitimate.
There are the criteria that you have to hit. We have expectations of how we look to see if you're hitting those criteria, but really it's on the community to show us or tell us how they're hitting the criteria.
Well, if it comes to spending government money, I mean, that makes sense to me, if it's relating to that. But just to have somebody set up and say, all of these communities have to meet our standards. We have standards too, and they're pretty high.
Yes, and I understand. We're just trying to make sure that communities, that we're removing barriers when it comes to redevelopment, and that we're being as transparent, fair, and efficient as well. And that's where the standards were set up around.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Council will move for consensus to proceed to adopt the resolution with the understanding that administration will work on the outstanding items and come back to us. Councilman?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And I say yes as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move to the next item on our agenda. And that is our police chief. And before you get started, this morning, the police chief, along with the mayor and myself, had a meeting on the incident that happened at Northland. So I really want to commend our police chief for just doing a dynamic job.
Thank you.
And answering all of the questions that were thrown at you. It was a great job.
All right, thank you. And good morning, Council and Madam Mayor and Deputy City Clerk and members of the community. I'm here this evening to request permission to purchase body armor for our police officers. I'm looking to purchase 20 bulletproof vests in total. The body armor that we issue all of our sworn officers expires after 5 years, and we purchase this body armor at different periods. So every year we have a certain amount of body armor that is expired, and therefore we purchase body armor every year. Again, this year we're looking at 20 vests total, 17 male and 3 female. There was a bidding process that was overseen by the purchasing department. The cost of the total project is a little bit over $14,000, and it is included in the police department budget. So I ask for council's permission to proceed with the purchase of this body armor.
Any questions?
We need a rotator tonight, or
Are you on for a rotator?
No, we're going to put it on the agenda.
All right, any questions? Councilman Frazier.
Yes, I know the ones in the past have been made of Kevlar and that we've approved before. What makes this one different than the ones that we've been purchasing in the past?
Well, one significant difference is that this one has what's called Thor Shield built inside of it. And Thor Shield is a material that deflects
the taser, the electrical impulse from a taser. And tasers, as we all know, are becoming much more prevalent in society now. You know, you have a lot of people carrying those. And so this, by us purchasing these vests with this material in it, it offer additional protection for our officers for this additional threat that they're facing out on the street.
The 20 that you want to buy now are only a portion of all the ones that you need. So you're doing it on a rotation basis. Is that the drift of what I get here?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? We'll move forward with the consistent Councilman Scott.
Yes.
Councilman Seymour. Councilwoman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilman.
Absolutely.
Yes, as well. All right, thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item is improvement to purchase replacement desktop computers for the library from Dell Computers. And I believe
Ladies and gentlemen, this item is, very similar to the desk purchase you just heard about. We do a rotation, purchasing part of our computers on various years. The computers that we are seeking to replace are for the staff. They are used by more than one person, typically in many cases. And they are more than 5 years old, and part of the reason why we need to replace them is that some of the software is coming out now, we can't upgrade to it, like the newest version of Internet Explorer and some of the things that are happening with Chrome. We can't upgrade to those because our computers are too slow and they can't be upgraded, so we need to replace. And this purchase is using equipment revolving and funds, and we did budget for that, and we asked to be able to do it.
All right, Council, any questions? Mayor Long.
What system are you going to be buying?
System, Dell computers, and we'd be using, they will be Microsoft, they're not Apple's, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Operating system.
Operating system would be Windows 8, I believe.
What are you going to do with the old one?
They will go into the, what's that called, the equipment pool. They will be gotten rid of. I mean, we'll be turning them over to IT so that they can be used when the next sale is that the city has.
So these are going to be sold, they're not going to be recycled in the city?
As far as I know.
The final I don't think we've made any final.
Well, yeah, that's true. I should say that I will be turning them over to you all, and then it will be, that decision will be made by us. Purchasing would make that decision, excuse me.
Suggestion or?
No, I would like to request to the chair that we get an update on our technology. I know my system is a lot older than 5 years, and throughout the city, what is our plan? Because we do have a revolving.
Sure.
And where are the new systems being rotated out to? And there is some software, and you're absolutely right, there is some software limitations. And I haven't received, I'm not aware of an update from my technology department on where we are as a city. And we're in a budget process, and so that, to me, would be drive some budget discussion.
The administration can come back to council on that item. I do know that we are in the midst of upgrading our Microsoft operating systems. But again, this also speaks to the redevelopment, reading, and capital improvements, looking at that in a broader, within a broader way. And I also, know, so I know Microsoft systems are being updated, and I can get an audit of what they have. Last I heard, we were nearing completion with most of our staff of updating their operating systems. I do know that we've got some issues with our financial accounting system, Eden, that Eaton is a name owned by, a brand name owned by Tyler, and Tyler is starting, well, we may not be supporting it in the future, and so we're going through some adjustments, and IT is looking at that as well. But we'll look at it in a holistic approach.
And that discussion we had with Comcast about
And if I may, the library and the city, and I don't know the exact beginnings, but we're separate, and so that's why I'm not sure that what we're doing translates to what you're thinking. It may or may not.
Why I asked.
Okay.
Councilman Frazier.
Yeah, I'd be a little hesitant about, even if it's okay to do it, I'd be hesitant about giving those old computers to our employees, because if they're not good enough for the library, why do we want to put something on the desk of one of our employees that may crash all the time? And we're looking for better productivity, not worse. So.
Any other questions?
I'd like to have, in regards to what the mayor said, put on the agenda one night to have our techs come in and talk about where we're at and where we have to go. I know that we used to have a 10-year plan and where we were headed, and that we would have rotation and purchasing work out to keep us really in the forefront of all the technology. So I'd like to maybe have a little discussion on that. I know the agenda gets short one afternoon, evening, or whatever. I'd like to have them come in and talk about it.
Okay, without any objection, this will go on the February 24th agenda. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is amendment to the city code for adding chapter 85 to the smoking lounge establishment. Is that Mr. Crowe? That's you. That's you.
As council will recall, at the regular meeting in January, you approved the zoning amendments for smoking lounge establishments, and I indicated at the time that we had also put together some licensing requirements for these establishments. And so this would work basically in tandem with the zoning ordinance that limited them to certain zoning districts. And generally, if you go through the proposed ordinance, it would, look at the backgrounds of people that want to open these type of establishments. It would require that they go through a police, fire, and building department check of the facility. There would be reasons for denial, for example, if there were felony convictions, those type of things. And it also proposes to establish certain requirements of these facilities. Hours of operation, pretty much in tandem again with the zoning ordinance, but it'll talk about even how long can employees stay on there. I mean, the goal is that these things close down, don't be operational, particularly at the times when the bars let out, because we know from even the discussions that the police chief has had, and we have with the police chief, that's when a lot of issues occur at these facilities. So age restrictions, parking restrictions, no alcohol. So just kind of general things that would make these types of establishments fit better in the districts that you've now approved. So if there was consensus on this ordinance, I would put it on the February 24th meeting for introduction, and then we would move for enactment in March.
All right, Councilman forgot.
So how does the court just rule in favor of the federal government to override the state's laws?
Well, on the marijuana?
Yeah, and some of the places that have these smoking lounges actually use the ground up marijuana in their facilities, and it's become part of the stuff they sell at the same time now. It's recreational, but I don't know how far this, if the federal government is not going to prosecute, we have a state law now, and we have a city ordinance. Does the federal government now override us on those kinds of situations?
That case that came out was the City of Wyoming versus Tribute case, and what it said was Wyoming had passed an ordinance that said, we will not allow any medical marijuana within the city because federal law precludes the use of marijuana. That's a controlled substance under the federal schedule. So this case said, no, federal law does not preempt in this case. Just because the federal government outlaws marijuana does not change the voter initiative to allow medical marijuana. And they found that Wyoming, in prohibiting medical marijuana based on the federal law, that was wrong, that was improper. So it leaves us now, this is not for smoking illegal substances. We know now that medical marijuana, we have to deal with from a zoning standpoint, and you know that we've been extending the moratorium because we were waiting for the Supreme Court case. So now we know what the laws of the state are going to be, and we'll work with planning, and we'll bring back the zoning ordinance for medical marijuana. But this is really, medical marijuana is restricted and regulated under the state law, and we'll now fit that within certain zoning districts and get council's, input as to where do you see those facilities being appropriate. But this is just to say, smoking lounges that now have the exemption under the state law for smoking nicotine and legal substances, we would license those
I was
facilities.
wondering,
Right.
if I open up a doctor's office and I have smoke, I say, okay, it's medicinal.
Right.
Everybody comes here for their
Well,
therapy. They all come here for their therapy.
That's why Wyoming and other cities just said, no, it's a controlled substance under federal law, and we are not going to allow it, we're not going to permit it. And so now the Supreme Court of Michigan has told us that it's improper. So, yeah, I think our moratorium goes through like July, mid-July, so we will be back in front of council now to draft an ordinance that deals with those establishments.
Marilyn, where was going to park?
Yes, do we have how many requests for licensing of these types of establishments do we have in our office?
Last time we were Terry, but we know that there was one that came in before the moratorium
Yes,
even.
it's already.
And I think there are a handful, a handful that have made a request. And so again, the reason that we would have this, and you could do the zoning ordinance without this, but this would give the city a chance to look at the operators and make sure that, we've got people that have good backgrounds and so forth running these establishments. And so it just kind of, to me again, works together with the zoning ordinance.
All right, we will, without any objection, we will have this on our February 24th.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is presentation sample Title VII.
Madam President, Lori System, our HR director, will be presenting a PowerPoint. As a recipient of federal funds from the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT contacted the city May of last year on this item, and we're now moving it forward. There's been a lot of dialogue back and forth with the state over their template and language. Ms. Siskin is free to make PowerPoint. We'll field questions as well.
Thank you. I was thinking about this during the Redevelopment Ready presentation that where Ms. Seymour said, we have standards, you have other standards, you're kind of imposing it on us. This is, Title VI talks about non-discrimination in federally assisted programs. City of Southfield, non-discrimination is part of the very fabric of who we are and what we are, and the idea that we need a special kind of program in order to ensure that we are open access and inclusive to all individuals is, kind of interesting. But just to give you background of what the framework is here, as you know, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 had several sections, they call them titles, we're more familiar with Title VII, which is the title with respect to employment, and that's something that my department's always been involved with, and it's something that's readily understandable about non-discrimination in terms of employment. There's Title IX, non-discrimination in education, et cetera. Title VI is a specific provision that kind of ties the hands of the federal government, saying if we're giving you money, we're going to control the way and make sure that there is no discrimination in the recipients of federally funded programs. So, as you know, we receive millions and millions of dollars in transportation money, and that's money we rely on and don't want to jeopardize in any way. So clearly we're going to be in compliance with the Title VI program. The framework comes from the Federal Highway Administration, from the federal government, down to the states, and the states are considered, in that case, recipients. The recipients in the federal process have to have a very tight assurance to the federal government that the communities that they're distributing money to are in compliance with the requirements of the federal government. So MDOT, who is the agency in Michigan, has a very prescribed program and a very detailed program that we really cannot vary from at all in terms of implementing this Title VI program. When we were starting to look at this, we looked at the Title VI program that's in place in a lot of other communities, and it has to be posted on your website. You can go to Westland and Oak Park and all these other communities and pull up their Title VI plan, and they are identical, down to the typos. I mean, they have, the punctuation in the wrong place in all the same cities. So, and I actually did clean a few of those up, and they're going to let me get away with it. So, what I'm going to do is the PowerPoint. We tried to make something really kind of a high-level overview of the policy, which is many, many pages long. And Mr. Zorn submitted the PowerPoint to MDOT, and they actually came back and changed it, and made it a little bit more detailed. So I'll go through the slides. We may not actually spend a whole lot of time on every single one of the slides, but the intention is to give you an overview, and obviously the city needs to adopt this plan in order to ensure that we remain a recipient of these federal dollars. And we would be asking at the next regular meeting, we will give you a copy of the plan in your materials, and then you will adopt the plan going forward. So this is just kind of an overview of what's going to be in there. Mr. Zorn can dive in whenever. The Title VI plan deals with 4 areas. Title VI, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, is the overarching civil rights law, prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, sex, and race, color, and national origin in any program or activity that receives federal assistance. So again, this is a distinguishing feature of Title VI from the other titles. It prohibits discrimination in recipients of federal funding. The Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987 kind of broadened that, the aspect where you think, I'm receiving federal funds for transportation, my transportation programs have to be in compliance. And the Restoration Act of 1987 said, no, all your programs have to be in compliance. Your swim classes have to be in compliance, everything that you do. So it extended the reach of the program. Executive Order 13166 deals with individuals who have limited English proficiency, and those are individuals who, in this plan, do have a very specific access to all the benefits and programs of government, and to make sure that we are inclusive and provide information to them. And Executive Order 12898 deals with issues related to environmental justice affecting minority populations and the elderly. There's the Title VII ensures that the benefits services are fair, made available to everyone. The program activity will not deny persons access, and they are not adversely impacted based on race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. So remember in the first slide, we talked about Title VI being with respect to race, color, and national origin. Then all of a sudden we had these other protected categories of sex, age, and disability, and those were from executive orders or statutes that actually added to the scope of the program that we're going to have in place. Recipients and subrecipients, where subrecipient must comply with Title VI, and in all of these other kinds of aspects, our planning process, our construction projects, rights of way, all the kinds of ways in which individuals and minority groups might be impacted in those projects. This is just one of the sections in Title VI, and again, that no person shall be excluded from participation, denied benefits, or subject to discrimination under any program that receives federal assistance. We have certain responsibilities as a subrecipient, and by the way, the PowerPoint I passed out is really too tiny to read, but just if you have any questions, I just thought it might be helpful for you to write your questions down there. As a subrecipient, we need to sign an assurance that we are in compliance, and that our contracts do have information about our obligations, and these non-discrimination requirements have to be included in the contracts that we have. That our program services and activities are conducted in a non-discriminatory manner. This is going to be in policy. And ensure that the Title VI provisions are included not only in the work that we do, but any work that we contract with other individuals that extends to them. The common elements with the Title VI plan, that you need to designate a coordinator in the plan that we have. I've been designated the coordinator to pull this together. The policy setting authority and regulations are included. The assurances that we talked about are going to be included in our contracts, our non-discrimination pledge. Federally and non-federally assisted programs are included, so as I indicated, it's not just where we receive federal funds, it's all the programs that we put on. And that we have to have a complaint process that is available to individuals and a procedure for dealing with complaints. Another feature of the Title VI plan is an LEP plan, which is for individuals with limited English proficiency. And those programs need to, all our programs need to be available to individuals who do not have proficiency in English. There was an analysis done of the number of individuals in Southfield with what is defined as limited English proficiency, and we do have certain obligations because of that. And our environmental justice programs, those are the programs directly targeting health issues for individuals in minority populations and low income. And another feature is it's hard to read down there, is training that we will be doing for all city staff in order for them to understand what the obligations are. Because, as I said, it's not just the obvious departments that we'll be dealing with, but Parks and Rec, purchasing needs to be involved, all the other departments that have access to the public, and that we need to make sure all of our programs are accessible. Very small print, another slide that they put in that really describes some of the features of the Title VI plan. Again, we talked about the non-discrimination provisions. There are certain addendums that need to be put in our provisions, and I supplied those to our city attorney, and she'll be working on identifying those and incorporating them into our contracts. Appendix A has to go into all federal contracts. Appendix B refers to transfer of property, and Appendix C refers to permits, leases, and licenses. So all those kinds of legal documents need to have now Title VI language included in them. Again, program compliance, program review goals for the current plan year, so they want to make sure that we don't just throw the Title VI plan on our website and say goodbye. Obviously, this is a living, breathing document, and a commitment to this program requires that we actually have a plan, that we understand what our obligations are, and we work cooperatively to implement the plan. So we will be, in number 2, publishing it on the website. We'll make sure that these appendices are included in our contracts. We will implement a procedure for dealing with individuals with limited English proficiency. We will take a review of our city facilities for access issues with respect to individuals with disabilities. And then we need to submit a report to MDOT on our progress and how we're doing. One of the first things, and this again came up in an earlier conversation tonight, is on our boards and commissions. They want to know about our boards and commissions and how we advertise those vacancies and make sure that those are inclusive and that we are reaching all members of the community, that our public meetings are open, that our construction projects comply, that we meet our LEP needs, that we have a complaint process that people can access easily, that the timeliness of our services are documented right of way and eminent domain. We need to document the numbers of issues coming up there, and the program participants, they would like us, if possible, to collect racial data on all our program participants throughout the city. So in order to be able to comply with all these requirements, we need to step back, see what kind of report we need to supply at the end of the year, and then put systems in place with all our departments so that they're collecting data and providing information, so we'll know, so we'll have the information so I can do the report at the end of the year. Again, goals and objectives, I think this pretty much repeats a lot of the information that we had already. And the general administration, how we're going to implement the plan. This talks about certain kinds of forms that are going to be required. The limited English proficiency program, you know, I did, when I looked at this, because I really wasn't familiar with it, and I called our public works department, I called the police chief, the fire chief. I said, what do you do if you run into an individual who does not speak English? And they all had kind of a process, but it was a little informal, and they didn't really have a lot of resources. So MDOT does have resources so that we have a formal process for dealing with individuals with limited English proficiency, and we will do staff training in order for them to understand what to do in that case. As I said, they did a study of a number of individuals in the community who do not speak English very well, and it was 6.5% speak various languages, so less than very well. So it did meet the threshold, and because of that, we do need to have our programs translated upon request to other languages, and that is a commitment that we need to provide. Not all of our documents, at least our vital documents, which they say is the Title VI plan, our meeting notices, and our complaint process. Safe harbor was just the minimum number or percentage of individuals that don't speak, that are LEP individuals that pop us into that requirement. So what the City of Southfield will do, what actions will we take? We'll notify the public that interpreter services are available. We will require 7 calendar days notice, but we will provide interpreter services. There's a translators resource list that MDOT provides that many pages of translator services for interpretation that we will have access to, and many of them are located locally in Southfield. There are I Speak language cards that I wasn't familiar with either before I saw this, but they're cards that say, I speak this language, and they're in all Arabic and Farsi and Russian, and you know, it's just a card, and you can hand it to someone who you're having trouble communicating with. They'll point to the language that they speak, and then you know that's Arabic, and you can go get an Arabic translator. So it's a program that's been in place for quite some time. Census Bureau created that. These are some of the activities we'll be involved with, because we can be in contact with individuals with limited English proficiency in a variety of ways. In an office encounter, out on the road for a service delivery, we could get a letter, we could get a phone call. So there will be process set up and training developed for all city staff. We'll start with the department heads and fan that out. There's also requirement under ADA. We did do an ADA compliance, a full ADA compliance in 1992. We did a transition plan, a communications plan, all the requirements of ADA back then, which now is over 20 years old. So we will be updating the transition plan to determine our compliance with the ADA. And again, there is a complaint process in the Title VI provision. The complaint process, they can complain, fill out a complaint form, and there is a very precise method for investigating and filing a report, and there is online training. I kind of went through the training module yesterday for that. So, and there are resources available at the state to help us. Again, if what we'd like today is if there are any questions, we'll try to answer them. Again, this was a program developed by the state and kind of given to us. I have talked to the state about perhaps providing training to us to implement it if there are pieces that we could use some help with, and maybe dealing with some other communities. Together we can kind of get a consortium of communities learning together how to implement the program.
Okay, we do have a few questions. Councilman Coffey.
Yeah, I was going to say that the Olympians are carrying the cards that are very similar to what you're talking about, so they can communicate with others who are not speaking the same language. I guess the Council President's name, the packet that we have, I asked them to not give it to us tonight because, number one, it's mandatory, and to copy it to everybody would just be a waste of time and energy. I think you're going to do it for the regular council meeting, all right?
Yes,
we have. You sure I think it is. And,
yeah, this is the plan.
And you know, any errors of punctuation and typos and everything else in that, it was done by best practices of the federal government and state, I'm sure. And, but anyway, not being sarcastic, but I guess I just get tired of people coming in here and telling you what best practices are, and then they can't even print an act, write an act which tells you what to do. The last thing is, are we pretty much in compliance already?
I think with the limited English proficiency, because there is a training requirement, so we do need to do that, but that's something we can easily implement. With respect to all the assurances that we have to have in our contracts, I know we do have some. I've talked to the city attorney. I know in our purchasing contracts we have certain language. I talked to Lee Schultz. In our transportation programs, we have certain languages. May not be their language, so we'll have to see if we have to change it.
And lastly, are there any funds that they're giving us to assist us in training for compliance?
That would be no.
Another gift from...
Right.
Okay.
Councilman Frazier.
Yes, I have a few questions. The first one is, in the beginning you said that Title VI covered any program or activity that uses federal dollars.
Yes.
Does that mean that we have to track all federal dollars that come into the city, for instance, community development block grant money, or if we use part federal dollars and part Southfield dollars or state or local dollars to put on a program that we have to comply with Rule 6?
We have to comply with Title VI in all of our programs and policies. This happened to come through the transportation funnel. I know we get federal dollars in other funnels, and they may have their own provisions, but we're going to, because this is such a massive influx of federal dollars, we're going to comply on the Title VI on the transportation. I think it probably will extend to the other programs.
Well, before we make a plan that says we're going to do it on transportation, maybe it would be to our benefit to find out, do all federal dollars have to be followed in, and look at the different plans and make sure that when we put it together, we don't think we've got the answer and then find out that, well, that's only part of the answer. Now we've got to go back and do it all over again.
And I think that's a valid point. I mean, the question then is, does HUD have its own, separate?
HUD, EPA, the Department of Energy and Transportation have a joint operating agreement for this level of rule enforcement. It really got fine-tuned in the stimulus language. I think what surprises me the most about this is that when our auditors come in and do their single audit, which is the audit responses back to the federal government, they've not been testing for these types of things yet. Now, I imagine if the feds are rolling out policy directives to MDOT and other state agencies, and what they've said is transportation, because we have the largest amount of money, transportation agencies at the state level are taking the lead. I imagine at some point in the next year to 2 years, there will be a whole other list of things in our single audit where they start looking at are we doing and complying with certain things. Every year there's something new, and the feds will work with the auditors, people who do that 125 single audit of things that are requirements. So I think at a certain point they will start, there will be a greater test. And they also, Lori, they've said every federal dollar. So I think when we get into this, so we'll go try to get the answer to your question. I believe that joint agreement between all federal agencies is going to comply here, and that's what we'll see. The only one I'm not sure about is when they started with the environmental justice, because that was not part of that joint agreement between transportation, HUD, energy, and EPA.
Okay. I'm going to maybe jump the topics a little bit, but I think it's apropos to some of the other speakers tonight. Let's say, for instance, someone applies for a board or commission position and they have limited English proficiency. How do we deal with that? If they have all the qualifications that we're looking for, except they have limited English proficiency, does that mean that we have to have an interpreter every meeting in order to include that person? And I'm not trying to find a way out of it.
No, I understand. I'll tell you, if the person needed a sign language interpreter, the answer would be yes. We had to provide a sign language interpreter for a child who was taking a free swim class. And it cost the city about $200 to provide a sign language interpreter for the child in the free swim class. So we will find out, but my guess is that we may have to do something along those lines.
Okay. And I'm going to ask this. Let's say that a person can communicate in English, but they feel a lot more comfortable speaking their own language. Same thing?
The point at which we have to provide LEP services may be somewhat limited because we don't have a huge proportion of individuals who are LEP in the community. And you can go through, we go through in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which I'm most familiar with, you do a interactive process with someone who comes forward that has a disability and asks for reasonable accommodation, and you work with them on a one-on-one basis to determine what they need, what's the best way we can provide that service, and do we have the resources to do it. And the LEP process is very similar. It talked about that four-factor analysis, and it's very similar to the interactive process. So if what they need and what we're able to provide, you know, we do the best we can, but it may not be a perfect fit. So.
Well, the reason I bring that up is we keep talking about we're an inclusive city. And yet, when we look at the population of folks that participate in events and all, there's a significant portion of our population that do not participate. Maybe it's because there's a limited English concern. And let's say one of the people from that group decide that they want to represent that group in one of our boards and commissions or one of our activities. So they step forward and say, I want to be part of it, but they also have limited English proficiency. I think there's some way or another we've got to look at the big picture to find out how do we get as many people in the community involved in our activities as we possibly can without costing us $1 million.
And those were the kinds of questions that we were hoping to bounce off of the enforcement people and ask them, how do you see these things getting implemented at the local level?
You also last summer surveyed all of our employees. We may have some depth amongst our own employee group, just people who speak other languages, and we've got an inventory of those folks, and we can help mitigate hopefully some of those costs to get us to that inclusivity.
Right.
And we're going to add that in our intake process and our applications. It's one of the things we're going to start asking people, would you like to, do you have a foreign language capacity, and would you be willing to assist us in translation? So we're going to ask all of our incoming employees the same question.
Okay. As Councilman Fracassi says, this is not an option. This is mandatory, and as long as it's mandatory, you might as well do it the right way. Thank you.
Councilman Southfield.
I'm very familiar with Title I, Title II, Title IX, and I'm curious about the reporting for this. Are you going to have to submit a report in a certain deadline?
There's I don't know if it showed up in here, there's a deadline of October 5th. I haven't seen what the report looks like, but there is material and statistics that they will want.
For the other titles that I just mentioned, there were audits. So you didn't have to submit a report every year, but you better have records. And from time to time, they came and audited.
I don't know. Yeah, annual reporting form by October 5th. So I haven't seen it yet, so, but that's what I said, I need to see what it looks like so that I can back into setting ourselves up so we'll have the information to answer the report.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Moore.
Yeah, I'm definitely in support of moving the plan forward, mainly because we have no other choice but to move the plan forward. But also, I think it's important to make a plan, and sometimes you pass laws not because discrimination is actually currently happening, but it's to prevent past discrimination from ever happening again. And to that end, I would say that this is completely relevant to something we're discussing in the legislative committee, in that the amendment to Elliott Larson, because nowhere in this, and this is federal statute, does it include gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender people in protection. And it just goes to show you that this highlights the need for something that we're discussing in our legislative committee that will be moving to council soon, that even the president is supporting an Employee Non-Discrimination Act that amends Title VII, not Title VI, to include sexual orientation. So this is important stuff that we're doing, and I think that it highlights a gap that we're looking to fill here in the city of Southfield. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Mayor.
Yes, I had a couple takeaways. One is that the training that's going to be provided, all employees will be required to take it. I think it would be very important for us as council members to have that training as well. Not just giving us a packet, because when I have to sign all the contracts. you know, this body has to approve contracts, and they should be very much aware of what should be in those and be able to discuss that issue. The other thing that stands out to me, and it's a concern I have, and that's with the construction industry. How do we ensure that a company that we contract to do road construction or to cut our lawns are actually in compliance? And how do we, is the federal government going to require anyone that's getting a federal contract to have on file and we just click and look at it? And I will tell you, I get this all the time. Why is it our construction people do not have diversity? We hire them, we give them our city tax dollars, but when you look at the crew, there's no diversity present. And, you know, that comes up all the time. So how do we say that we gave them that contract and we know that they do not discriminate based on race or gender? I mean, that's something that's a concern of mine. And I want to be able to have a sense of there has been some checks and balances.
And I think that the non-discrimination pledges are already in those contracts, correct, Sue? But, you know, in this case, it may be because there is a complaint procedure and that there's an investigation that follows to determine, did the contractor, you know, were they inclusive in their advertising? Did they have discriminatory hiring processes or employment processes? And that'll be part of the investigation and complaint process.
And the other part of that is if there were complaints against that, we may have that in our language. But what if that person has had complaints in the past? How would we, I mean, under this, and these are concerns, but that's a question I want answered. I want to know if there have been complaints or issues of failure to do this. I would think we would need to know, because anyone can sign a contract and say, I will not discriminate, but then their history has shown something totally different. And those are the type of things I want to make sure that, I know I want to take this training personally, so that when I'm looking at contracts that I'm signing, that I know we're in compliance. And, you know, as you all know, I tell you all the time, I was a yield investigator. And the training was not just a one lifetime training. It was mandated that you get refresher training as well. And when you come back with this, how often is that you have to be retrained? Does our board and commissioners, are they required to get this training as well?
Good point.
Okay.
And I just want to offer, I can tell you with our HUD, what stuff we do with Department of Energy and our transportation, we do, the debarment list is checked. And that's one of the things the auditors do ask us to see. When contracts are awarded, they want to see that staff has verified the debarment list. Purchasing usually attaches a copy of that, keeps it in the file. But this is an opportunity to review all of those processes. And even the debarment list at the federal government used to be a single list by agency. It has now come together, and I believe it's all under justice, and I'll take a look at that too. But we do, I know everything we do with energy, any of our HUD, and I know our transportation, the debarment list is checked. The debarment's a very complex process too. It doesn't mean you don't have, we're all angels.
But those are concerns I would like those.
And, you know, this is something that we add to the specification for bids, you know, ask the question, if there's been any complaints under any federal.
Or is there somewhere we can check?
Councilman
Yeah, you know, I agree with what the mayor's saying, but, you know, let's look at the real scope of it. In reality, council does not get the contract. We approve a contract and it's submitted to the clerk and mayor to sign from legal, okay? When a contract is submitted by the city to you and Nancy to sign, I'm sure they follow the law because that's what their job is. Now, similarly, when you have a contract, those people have to sign a contract which stipulates that they abide by the laws which they must have in place. Now, to go out and check everyone that does the job, in the city, that's like, every contract is signed, you're gonna have to go see if they got a job in Evergreen Road, for example. We're gonna go out and check every contractor out there to see whether or not he's abiding by the law. I mean, they're supposed to be abiding by it before they sign a contract that they have. Now, rightfully, if you get a complaint, then you follow through with the complaint. But if you're just out there looking, and we haven't got any investigative teams that we can put out there, the cost would be prohibitive.
And that's why I brought up, I agree with you, but that's why I brought it up. I need to have some sense of assurance of there is a process. And I will tell you glaringly, our contractors on roads, there is no diversity. But we keep hiring them, and we're saying, I'm just saying, I need.
Are you asking us to test every contractor?
I'm asking for some assurance that I.
But that's the only way you would have insurance.
That's not the only way.
Well, what's the other insurance? You're signing a
Well, let's
contract.
find out.
What? But that's.
Let's find
I
out.
have no problem, but I'm just saying,
Find out.
that was my big contestant when we built the library, that there was nobody checking whether or not we had diversity in the contractors and general contractors. No, the only one we had was a woman-owned, company that put the fence around, put a fence around the library. That was the only minority that worked on that library.
And there was a lot of,
So-
digging deep in that one. I know Councilwoman Jordan and I looked at that, and it was the bond issue. There were subcontractors.
Because we
for
take
minorities.
time to argue that point.
Lori, you've got a recommendation for a schedule in terms of processes and completing our compliance. So for this meeting,
For this evening, I'd like consensus and then just the idea that we'll move forward and put it on the consent agenda on the 24th for adoption.
Okay, without any objection, Council, this will move forward to the consent agenda for February.
Can I just ask, what is moving forward?
It's the adoption of the actual plan, which we didn't give you today, but it's the full written plan coming from MDOT that we cannot alter. So,
We don't have an option.
correct. It's a non-discrimination plan and a limited English proficiency.
We'll phrase the resolution that allows staff to move to implementation. I mean, the initial areas are purchasing, contract document review, employee, the language. We'll bullet point some immediate steps of action that we can take. I'll tip my hand, the next finance committee meeting, I'll be making a recommendation that hopefully will come to council either March or April, moving some community development block grant money as much as $900,000 for ADA compliance on this campus.
How much?
As much as $900,000.
When do we get that? I mean,
You don't even have that much in your letter of credit. I'm going to start with the finance committee at the next meeting, and then I may even want to go to the neighborhood services committee as well and run the concurrent committees, just so everyone can see the amount of money.
okay, because I was gonna say, the amount of money we get on the,
Your annual allocation is roughly $410,000.
we'll be writing
But
bad
within
checks.
your letter of credit, you have a larger amount, and to take on a large capital project would be an excellent way of meeting this requirement.
And there is an outline that you've included, Lori, in the package, in terms
The-
of action plan.
Right, the outline was really just because we weren't putting the full plan in, so that was just for council to have some idea of what we were going to talk about.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is request for technical adjustment for the CDBG.
Yes, Madam President, for the council. We're, the adoption of the 2013-14 Community Development Block Grant Program to be increased by $250,000 to $672,900. That is recognizing our program income for our SHIP account. We had a similar situation in 2011 when the budget was adopted. Community Development Block Grant was approved by council on July 29th. After the budget, we didn't know how much we were getting, but we did have program income. I just want to recognize that program income so that work can be done within the SHIP program. And that'll be for this current fiscal year. In your last allocation, you allocated $59,000 and a few odd dollars to SHIP. But this recognizes the program income from SHIP. And the number, we used the budget figure of $250,000 as of January 31st. It was right around $264,000.
Okay, Mr. But
Do we need a Rule 10 for this? If so, I'll move it.
I could wait to the next meeting.
Let's do it tonight.
Or we can do it tonight.
It's a budget thing, you might as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
All right, I move a Rule 10.
We have a motion by
Support.
Councilman Cybers, supported by Councilman Seymour to move for Rule 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I just have a question. That money that you're asking for, is that projected income or it's what we have in the bank?
It is what you have in your letter of credit. In addition, I've also asked Plant Moran to start showing the letter of credit balance in the audit so that everyone knows there are certain spending guidelines that we're only supposed to have a balance no greater than 1.5 times our annual allocation. And when you go through all funds, and we're doing an accounting exercise right now on this, the balance appears to be about 1.1 to 1.3.
So so is the council approving a line of credit?
No, this is your line of credit from HUD.
Right.
Basically, these are unspent monies from projects that have not been complete since 2008.
Yeah, that's it. So we have it on hand.
Well, we don't have it on hand, but we could submit to HUD a voucher on any of the already approved projects. I will present you the balance and request that you reprogram the dollars. We'll then go through an environmental review and an advertisement, and that will set the stage for the city to access these funds.
Okay.
Many of these projects are already complete, they're just residual dollars. The largest amount is in the SHIP program, and I will remind council that effective July 1 at Oakland County, you have $177,000 sitting in the home consortium up in Oakland County. The city's best number, this is pre-led, HUD-led, when you had a full-time person in the SHIP program, your best year you ever spent was about $225,000. So, we've got kind of what I call, the python's got a large knot to digest. And when I look at capital needs of facilities and what's eligible, docking off some of these ADA items makes a lot of sense from a risk standpoint, an accessibility standpoint, an inclusivity.
I move the adoption of the technical adjustment to the CDBG for the 2013-14 budget.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Simon, supported by Mr. Frazier to approve the adoption of the moving money of the CDBG fund at $250,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the last item on our agenda is a presentation from the Millennial Mayor Congress.
Madam President, Emily Thompson from the Michigan Suburbs Alliance will be presenting this item by way of history. At the January 29th Legislative Committee, a presentation was made
and we're asking to place the resolution on the next agenda.
And give us your name and business address.
Emily Thompson, I'm with the Michigan Suburbs Alliance. Our address is 22757 Woodward Avenue, Suite 250 in Ferndale, Michigan, 48220. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about one of our flagship programs called the Millennial Mayor's Congress. Is that better? The Millennial Mayor's Congress is an intergenerational partnership of civic leaders. We have 23 cities that participate. Each one is represented by a city official, typically a mayor or a council person, sometimes a city manager, and a young resident chosen by the city. Together, these individuals are sort of tasked with making our region a more vibrant place, a place that young people want to be. And about a year ago, some of the mayors and council members that I work with said, you know, we do want to do what you're asking us to do. We want to make the region more attractive for young people, but we want to partner with them to do that. We want them at the table, and they're not really there. They don't participate in local government. We don't see them at meetings. And so I sort of set out to figure out whether or not that statement was true. And we ended up pulling population and voter registration data for all of our cities. And then we looked at boards and commissions and council, and we actually pulled the qualified voter file to figure out the ages of the people who are currently involved. Probably not surprising that young people are, in fact, underrepresented. In Southfield, they account for about 20% of the population, and I should say when we say young people, we're talking 18 to 35. That's just sort of how we defined it. But they represent about 20% of the population, 25% of registered voters, and they hold only 5% of board and commission seats. So about on par with the regional average of 6%. In doing that research, we also looked at the way that our cities share information about those opportunities, and we, again, put together a set of best practices. I actually tonight learned that there's some overlap between what we're asking you to do, what MEDC is asking you to do, and what Title VI is requiring you to do. So we want to make sure that the city is providing folks with information about what might make them qualified to serve on a board. That's something that MEDC is asking. And we're looking for you to do your best in advertising positions, which is what Title VI seems to be asking you to do. There are also some sort of additional unique best practices that we came up with. And when I say we, I mean the communities that I work with. These representatives actually came together and agreed on the best practices that I believe you have in your packet tonight. You also have a report, if you're curious, for the city of Southfield that shows what representation looks like and where the city kind of currently stands and what we're recommending. Tonight I'm here to ask you to pass a resolution in support of work that we're doing. If you pass the sample resolution that I provided, essentially you're agreeing to work for these best practices with the goal of adopting all of them by the end of 2016. In doing so, we hope that you'll see an increase in millennial representation on boards and commissions. Right now you're at 5%. We're hoping that you can get to 7 by the end of this year and 9 by the end of 2016. On average in our communities, that's about 1 extra millennial this year and 2 or 3 by the end of 2016. So not a big change, but a change nonetheless, because we think that young people really have a lot to offer local government. We think they're an untapped resource, and I think Councilman Moss is hopefully a good example of that here tonight. Given your position on council, Southfield actually is doing significantly better than most as far as city council seats are concerned. Wonderful.
She likes Jeremy.
Yes. Councilman Moss was a trendsetter. This year, 5 communities in the last election elected people under the age of 35 to council. And we find that they add a unique perspective, which if you're looking out for the interest of millennials,
This
which
group
we
might
are.
think that too, I don't know.
We're also in the process, we got a $50,000 grant from the Knight Foundation, and we're in the process of creating a system that our cities can use to keep track of appointment information and sort of advertise positions and recruit applicants. We're calling it Onboard. It launched last week if you're curious. It's onboardmi.org. We're working with Ferndale, Ypsilanti, and Washington County on that pilot. So we know we're asking a lot of you, and we want to kind of let you know that we're doing our best to secure funds to help you do the work.
Yeah, so this came before our legislative committee, which consists of myself, Councilwoman Seymour, and Councilman Frazier, and we unanimously brought this before council. And actually, I served on the Boards and Commission Committee last year, and this is just a goal to make sure that we are following best practices, which is your favorite word.
I want the definition before I read
Well,
it.
Emily can actually give you the definition in this term of what best practice is, and I'll yield to her.
So the term has to apply to everything, everybody who uses it.
Okay, well, it's standards that other communities have adopted to make sure that the boards and commission appointment process is fair, transparent, and detailed. And this group, the Mayor's Millennial Congress, voted on which communities in certain different aspects are achieving that. So one of the things that the Mayor's Millennial Congress wanted to achieve was make sure that younger people had participation in government. Councilman Frazier serves on the legislative committee, but is also chair of the boards and commissions. So he basically said at our committee meeting that this is a goal that we're going to attain. You know, we're going to try and reach to make sure that, you know, one young person, that's all it is, one young person at least is appointed to one of our boards and commission by the end of this year, and then by the end of 2016, an additional 2 or 3. So this is a goal, but it's also adding a little bit of strength and numbers to the work of the Mayor's Millennial Congress, which is an affiliate of the Michigan Suburbs Alliance, to make sure that the work that they do is actually supported in practice by city government. And so I'll ask Emily if you can explain the best practice, the idea of.
Well, I want the definition.
Well, I'll turn it over to Emily.
I want the definition, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that there's a universal definition of a best practice. For us, we looked at the 23 cities that participate in the Millennial Mayor's Congress. We looked at what they were doing. We picked the best of the best as defined by the individuals in our group, so fellow mayors, fellow council members, city managers, and young people, and we put together sort of the best of the best, and that's what we're asking you to do. We also, on the report that we put together for Southfield, we show you how many of the 23 cities are currently doing each best practice. So you'll see, you know, most of them are providing a list of boards and commissions on their website. That's a pretty standard practice. 20 of our cities do that, including Southfield. Something that's a little bit less common would be using Facebook to actually make it known that the city is recruiting for boards and commissions. Some of our cities do that, others haven't started doing that yet. We're recommending it because we know that young people go to Facebook for information, and so it's just another avenue that you could utilize. So they're pretty straightforward. We even provide you suggested language. If you want to put together a Facebook post, feel free to steal the language right from our best practice. We want to make this easy. So we've tried to dot all our I's and cross all our T's here.
What does the Millennial Mayor's Congress do?
Sure. We work on regional policy issues, things that are going to make the region more attractive for young people. So we're still a new group, 5 years in the making. The first year we looked at energy policy and actually helped create the Regional Energy Office, which I believe Southfield.
Who do you give input to?
I'm sorry?
I keep interrupting, but who do you give input to?
The regional decision makers like yourself.
Oh, do you?
Yes. So our focus is cities. We bring together representatives from cities. We create policies or recommendations with those representatives, and then we go back to the full council in the cities that we work in. So hopefully I'm not the first representative of the
I don't mean to give you a hard time,
No.
but you know, I just got through it saying, I don't like to be rated. I don't like to be rated, and somebody uses a word like best practices. When if you were in a room with a group of illiterates, you know, the level of best practices among that group would be whatever it is.
Well, and these really are your
So when you
peers.
have multiple cities and communities, best practices mean different things to different people. And I just dislike the word because now they're grading you, just like the governor is, you know, telling you you have to do this to get money. And I don't like to be graded something I don't understand in order to get federal dollars or anybody else's dollars.
I mean, we don't have any federal dollars, we don't have any state dollars, these aren't required.
No,
They're recommended by the other cities.
I'm just talking about the words.
Sure. No, and I understand.
I still would like to, when asked to be part of best practices, I want to know exactly what I have to do to be the best. all right?
Well, not-
And that I have to get defined by somebody pretty soon, all right?
If Southfield were to achieve all the best practices tomorrow, you would be the best in Southeast Michigan. So we have included things that are pretty easy to achieve and a few others that are a little more difficult. None of the cities that we work with have hit all the marks yet. So we're hoping that we can do that together as a region and unify some of these practices.
Not all the cities have the top rating?
Right. We don't have a single city who has achieved all of our best practices. So there is, nobody
Well,
yet is the best.
How do you know how to get there if you don't know what it means?
Well,
And how it's rated? I
Sure.
I just went through this with
I
the
understand.
individuals that were before you, and now they're tying it to money.
Right.
And that really disturbs me when they're using a word they can't define and telling me that in order to get money, or a portion of money, I have to be at that level, which they cannot even define. And I guess that's what really bothers me. And I wish they'd just stop using that terminology, buzzword that you started about 5 years ago, and it's like my place. What is my place? And they use this things that they don't know what it means, and I guess put it in the dictionary and I have to read and find out what it means.
Sure. I think,
And I can get there.
I mean, if it's more comfortable, I think that these can certainly be thought of as recommendations and not best practices. Given that they were created in Southeast Michigan specifically, they're not national, so we can't call ourselves the best necessarily if we do all these things, but they are solid recommendations that were created by peer cities as part of a group that Councilman Moss participated in.
Well,
So
see, I think
hopefully-
Southfield is the best, and I want to know if I'm not the best, how to get there.
Sure.
And that is really what my problem is, right?
Okay, we've got a lot of conversation at the table as well as in the audience. Conversation to zero.
Yeah, I just hope that the phrase best practice doesn't detract from what this is actually trying to achieve. It's setting examples that I think Southfield in some areas does lack in terms of our boards and commission process. And so I know you'll review this in detail before it comes back to us at our next council meeting. I think these are smart recommendations that the city of Southfield, in a non-binding way, can say, you know what, we're on board to kind of to get there and retool our boards and commissions to be more effective. This is a group that specifically advocates for millennials, and this is a resolution that's detailed towards how do we get young people involved. So I think that it's a group that's specifically detailed. We can trust them a little bit to say, you know what, we'll delegate this a little bit to this group to advocate so that we don't have to spend time at this table doing it.
Usually we get hooked up as time keeps going on, these new groups, now as opposed to the Michigan Suburban Alliance. Because they said, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for the city of Southfield that we can't get done on all the groups that we belong to now, Michigan Municipal League, Council of Governments, and all this stuff, mayor's group of cities, National League of Cities, and all these committees, and here they form this, the mayor of Taylor started this, right? And so he was out of a job. But anyway.
I don't think because of that.
No, but he started, and they got out of funding, then it got federally funded, and I don't see the city getting a check to accomplish anything other than belong to a group and pay dues. And we were one of the first cities to pay dues to that group. All right? And it wouldn't have gone over if we wouldn't have put a big chunk of money into it. All I'm trying to say tonight, I don't mean wound up, but, I'm getting really tired of people telling me I've got to get somewhere in order to get some money from the federal government, and they keep stealing it. And they keep stealing it, and they keep stealing it. February 10th, if you had less than $80,000 worth of inventory, you were exempt from personal property tax in this city and in this state. And we sit back there and I'm saying, hey, on the 10th of February, I don't hear any group helping me out in saying, hey, they're stealing more money from me. Now it's $80,000. After the election, it's going to take 75% of my 30 million square feet of office space. And I don't see any help coming from all these organizations that are supposed to be coming out and saying, I'm going to help you. I haven't seen anybody stand up to be counted. I've gone to those personal property tax hearings, and there's nobody there helping us.
Well, I'll say, I don't think anyone at this table disagrees with you, which is why this council unanimously put that personal property tax resolution together, say we don't support the repeal, or unanimously, just at the last meeting, said, give us our money back. I think we're all on the same page, but I don't want to get your passion for that, which is founded, to distract from the fact that, this isn't requiring anything other than let's try and promote young people to be involved.
But let me just
This
say
is,
this, and
but
I'm
you
gonna
gotta
shut
read
up
this
for the
down.
next.
This
I'm
is
gonna
good
shut up for the
stuff.
next.
This is good
We used
stuff.
to have, under Michigan week, we used to have Government Day, and they used to have elections in our public schools for mayor and council, and it used to be a big thing, and Mayor Exchange Day, and we used to have students up here behind their council acting in behalf of the council and seeing what it is to run city government. And that disappeared. So getting kids involved.
This isn't
that's
kids.
what we were
This is
trying-
18
young
to
people, I don't care.
35.
Young people, I don't care old people. I'm just saying is that we eliminated something that I thought was the greatest program, and Ken remembers that. The kids used to have elections in the schools.
Yeah.
It used to be a big thing. They just put billboards up and vote for me and all this stuff. And it was pride to stand up there and be, a mayor for the day, or a councilman for the day, or a clerk for the day, attorney,
Well, don't you want some of that energy back?
Well, I don't know why it ever stopped.
Well, this is a way to kind of reinvigorate young people at the
Let's
table.
start back where we had it.
All right, well,
Start that.
Don, I asked you to read this because this is good stuff. This is something that's important.
I read a lot.
I know you do. That's why I add this to your list.
I actually just was handed a definition of best practices.
And you don't have to read that.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Okay. I can leave it with you if you'd
No,
like.
you don't want it.
You send me a copy, Emily. You send me a copy, Emily.
All right, we're gonna move to Councilwoman Seymour.
All right, what bothers me here is that we're being blamed for young people not being...
No one's putting blame.
Will you let me finish? And Jeremy, don't interrupt me, okay?
I'm also not a child, and I don't give you any disrespect, and I really don't. I have to command respect at this table.
But you're
And that's
interrupting
no.
me. You're interrupting me when I'm talking. And you allow me to talk.
I don't approve the way that your tone comes at me and the way that you speak to me, and it's not appropriate.
I wasn't speaking to you.
Okay,
You interrupted me.
Ms. Seymour, can you direct your comment to either myself?
I wasn't directing it to him.
Okay.
I'm talking about the fact that we are being blamed for not having young people involved or interested in government. And I don't understand why it's our fault. What you were talking about, the schools being involved when they had their elections, it seems to me the schools should be teaching civics, and I don't know that they do anymore. And
Excuse me. If you're going to sit in this audience, we need you to be quiet. We're having a discussion at the table, and we don't want to be interrupted with a comment. If you can't do that, please leave. Thank you very much.
I'm perfectly fine with the idea of having young people involved in our boards and commissions to the extent that, we do have some technical boards and commissions that you have, like electrical, where we have engineering and people like that. And as long as they can fit into those categories, because it's kind of a broad range, it's 18 to 35, so it's not really, the young people. But it sounds like it's our fault that they don't participate, and I wonder why young people in that general category aren't interested enough in government to come to council meetings. We have to go out and bring people in, and that doesn't make sense to me. When I was, I was a beneficiary of a concept like this when I was in my early 20s, and I was involved as a volunteer with a group that really provided services to young people. And the board was all made up of people in their 40s and above, and one day they decided they should have some people from the organization be represented, and I was one of 4 people that was asked to join the board. So I understand the importance of that. But I don't understand why young people, whatever this 18 to 35 category is, aren't interested enough to come to council meetings. We have to reach out to bring them in, and I'm fine with that, but I don't, it's like we've got a wall here that says that we don't want this participation, and that's not true. Nobody's saying don't come to council meetings. Why aren't people interested enough in civics or in government to come to the meetings? And I was told this by a person that everybody knows from League One Voters when I was, she said, it's your city too, why don't you come to council meetings? It's your city too. And I was complaining about things that were going on, and she said, it's your city too, why don't you come to council meetings? So I started coming to council meetings. I'm just saying that there's, it's not our fault. And I'm fine with in reaching out to have this representation. I do have a problem with mandatory percentages, because in some cases it may not be practicable, and especially in some of the technical ones. So I have a problem with having a specified percentage dictated to us. That does bother me. But, they're not interested in government. Is that our fault? I don't think so. I just don't think so. I think it's the way government isn't taught anymore. Civics isn't taught.
If I could, our intention is not to place blame on the cities that we work with. Our ultimate goal is to work with our cities to help them be more transparent and share information through avenues that we know young people use, like the internet. But we also are asking the Knight Foundation for a pretty significant grant to engage young people ourselves and tell them about what it is that you do, the value in local government, the opportunity that they have to get involved. Because we agree with you that we think that message has been lost somewhere. And it's really important that they want to be at the table. It's just as important that we help them want to be at the table as it is that you reach out to them. So we're really trying to work on this on a number of levels, and it really is not our intention to blame our cities. We know that you have a lot on your plate, and there's a number of groups that you're working to engage. We're just asking that, when you can, share information.
We do put everything on our website, and I think we do a lot to make that available. And if people aren't interested, it bothers me that we have to go and tell people in the public to be interested in government, no matter what age it is. They should be interested in what's going on in their city. So,
they should.
It's a new dynamic when you look at what's happening in our country. The baby boomers are now the majority of the population, and the baby boomers are the 50-pluses. And we really think we own, and we do. We run everything. We have the most wealth in the country. We are the highest number of elected officials. We are the largest property owners. And you have another generation, and they're fixing us up really good. You can get a hip, arm, eyes, anything you want replaced to live longer. And there is a certain amount of arrogance, I think, in those of us who are labeled baby boomers. There is a responsibility, and I take it personally, that you develop the next generation, you get them engaged, that you prepare the next generation to be leaders. I think this is an awesome opportunity to prepare leaders for the next generation while you're empowered to teach them, guide them along, give them the experience. One of the things I did hear from this presentation is that they were actually going to give us some funding that would allow us to program and track the Millennial. I know I appointed one to the Parks and Rec, and I deliberately did that because I want my board, I have seniors, I have a person that has family, I have individuals who are actively golfing and using our facilities. But I wanted a young person. He has young children, and he's in that millennial age. And so when they're sitting at the table, there's different conversations. So you can talk about, you can put this in why don't we have more women in positions of leadership? Is it because when they walk into the room or when they see leadership, it's all men? Why don't we have African Americans who are not in certain places? Why don't we have more young people? Maybe it's because when they come to council, they see a bunch of old people. I don't know. Because we are old. We're all over 50. And we don't talk about the same things, like with technology, how we get information, how we read things. We're still picking up paper, and they're coming in with nothing in their hand, using their phone and technology. And there's nothing wrong with me. With my experiences and being old, I'm fine. I contribute. But is there value? Do I govern these young people? Do I set policy? Am I responsible for taking care of them? Are they included in this city? Do they pay taxes? So, you know, I see it as a wonderful opportunity to provide leadership to actually tell us, you know, how are other cities getting people involved? And that's how I see the term of best practice. If we're all doing the same thing, and everybody's doing a little different, we've got some best practices, like Councilman Bukowski said, that people can come here and look at us and say, that's a good way of doing it. And when we interact with our colleagues, we do that all the time. And say, you know, what are you doing for, because everyone, I can tell you, we get complimented so much on our blight control and how we deal with curb appeal. This city, we would be called a best practice because we do that very well. And so I see it as an opportunity. Mr. Bukowski is right. There's a lot of organizations out there. This organization was developed because it was all of the edge cities to a major urban area. We share some of the common things, our housing age, some of the challenges we have. We made a decision to partner with them. They're bringing this forward, and I think it's a great and positive thing.
Let's stay with the agenda.
Can I just about talk about that?
No, I've got some people that want to speak, so Councilman Frazier.
Yeah, Mayor has said a lot of things that I want to say, but I don't see what the Millennial Mayor's Group is bringing forward as blaming us. However, almost on a council meeting by council meeting basis, when I go home and talk to my wife about what went on at the council meeting, I almost always get and that's why young people don't want to be involved. One of the things, and I've lived this all my life being an African American, and in a lot of instances being in a group that has no power, you get a sensitivity of they don't want me there. And so we don't have to do anything overt to the young people to say, don't come here or anything else. They can feel it in the aura that comes off of the way we do business that, you know, I just don't fit in that group, and I don't have enough interest in cracking that group in order to be there. And I do applaud Jeremy for coming, you know, being that person that is willing to gird on the sword and shield and saying, I don't care what you know, I'm coming in and I'm going to try to make a difference. And what we need are more people like Jeremy. But we have to examine our own culture and make sure that we aren't losing that feeling that people are picking up on, their antennas are picking up, that I don't want to spend the time trying to come in there and find out that I'm not really wanted, and they don't respect the information and the education that I bring to the table. So, we've got to do a better job, and regardless, it is our fault. So.
I also don't see this as somebody pushing an agenda on us. I think it's a goal for us, and it's a worthy goal. Given the average age of our council, I think we should be looking at bringing people along. And after the November election, I went to the clerk's office and I purchased the database of voter participation in the November election. And roughly 11,000 people voted. 67% of them, of the people who voted, were born before 1956. And the group that was least represented was the 18-year-olds. Out of 11,000 voters, only 9 18-year-old Southfield residents voted. 9. And it's not much better for 20, 24, 25, and even parent participation, and they're young people. Only 541 parents voted in the November election, and there was a millage on that election. 541. And it again, the majority of people who voted were by gender were female. 62% of the voters were female that participated in the November election. These are real statistics. I'm not making it up, and I think it speaks to what we have to, why this is important. And if we don't attain it, okay, but at least we could make an effort to be more open to younger people and new ideas. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Moss. Yeah, and I wish Mr. Lance was here for this, story, because when I ran for council 2.5 years ago and was elected, Mr. Lance and I had lunch, just kind of introduced each other to one another. We knew each other in the context of the campaign. And, in a way that only Sid could ask, he said, why'd you really run for council? Throw the campaign speeches aside. Why did you run for council? And I said to Sid that it would have been just as unrepresentative of this community if there were 7 25-year-olds on city council as it is now with no 25-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 45-year-olds. It wasn't an attempt. It wasn't an attempt to push an agenda. It wasn't an attempt to overtake council. I have never, said anything that, has said that, there has to be some sort of mass overtaking of council and city hall. I just think that there's an opportunity for young people to participate. If this council chooses not to pass it, it's just going to add to another level of frustration for young people that there is no avenue to participate. I'll read from it. We have a population of 20% of the city of Southfield is under the age of 35. It's between the ages of 18 and 35. And only 5% of that group holds boards and commission seats. That is, there are 200 boards and commission seats in the city of Southfield, and only 10, one more than the number of 18-year-olds that voted, only 10 hold boards and commission seats. This sets a goal. We should be proud of this. We should be proud to introduce this. We should be proud to embrace this. We're the city that's wanting to have this. So set aside that this is the Millennial Mayor's Congress. Set aside the word best practices. Look at the language in it. I think this is something that we should want to embrace instead of wanting to buck and say, not in my community. So my question to Emily is what other communities have passed this? What other communities embrace this? Not that it's going to influence our decision, but, it's going to add us to the chorus of a Metro Detroit region, of a state that has lost population over the last 10 years. No other state, even post-Katrina New Orleans, Louisiana, no other state has lost population in the last 10 years besides Michigan. And that's the mass exodus of millennials, because there's no avenue for participation. It is part and parcel to that. All this says is we want to encourage Southfield to find a solution to a problem that we didn't create, but that somehow we are stakeholders that could possibly solve. What other communities are saying that this is important?
So we're working with all 23 cities that participate in the MMC to pass similar resolutions. To date, Farmington Hills, Southgate, Pleasant Ridge, and East Point have already adopted resolutions, and we're on the agenda in a handful of other communities, including Ferndale. As I said, Ferndale, Ypsilanti, and Washington County are all participating in our pilot, so I think it's just a matter of time until we actually get them to formally pass the resolution. But so far, we've had incredible support, largely, I might add, from baby boomers and people over the age of 50 who would like a little diversity in their government, age diversity in their government. So.
Thank you, Councilman. Great.
Yeah, I just like to make a suggestion. You have to go back sometimes to see what worked and try to make it work again. And my suggestion is to work with the schools. We used to have a class come here at council meetings, and it had to sign papers that they were here and attended a council meeting. I think they should put back into play that they have an election for council and mayor on a certain day to celebrate History Day or whatever they might do. We have youth appointments on various boards. I don't think we still have them full anymore because
I have
committee,
them.
but I have. But anyways, but I think that we aren't even invited to class anymore to talk about government. And I've gone to academies where I've been invited to speak about government and government classes, in private schools, the government classes. I haven't been in Southfield High or Southfield Lathrop in years talking about government and what it takes to run a city, or what does a mayor do, what does a councilman do. So these are the kinds of things that we can work together with the schools to get us, scheduled to talk about what it's all about. And I think that would start the interest to get on these other boards and find out what they could do in a larger scale. But right now, it used to be, we used to have 2-3 classes here at our council meetings, and they all have to come up and you used to have to sign that they were present, and that's even stopped. So I'm for all reaching out to young people, and not just the high school kids, but college kids, and anybody who's interested. But I think it's our fault that we have discontinued those kinds of activities which are inclusive to those who are being taught. So they grow up in ignorance because they don't know what we do, and they don't watch us on TV. So where are they going to get the information to get involved or run for office? It's great. A young man like you, I was, 27 when I ran and was elected. But I enjoyed it, and I grew up in a political family, all right? But that isn't how all kids grow up. Sometimes they don't have ma's and pa's, and they're on the streets, and they don't even read the news. So it's up to us to bring them up in government. But anyway, I think we ought to have a committee to make that happen.
Just a point of order, for anybody who wanted to know, government in Michigan high schools is a graduation requirement. It is taught. I know they're not coming here, but it is taught. It's a graduation requirement.
Well, even the colleges, universities have asked me to come in and talk about planning. I'll tell you, I've been here several times, talk about planning, what a councilman, what a mayor does. Planning.
I know Jeremy's going this week to school.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyways.
All right, I'm definitely in favor of this resolution, and we think of Jeremy as being the youngest person on the council, but I'm the next youngest person.
I'm the next.
No, I'm sorry. So there is a serious generation gap that we really have to fill, and any outreach that the city can be a part of in engaging the young people in our community, get involved in government, and really take the city to the next level, help us develop it, give us their insight, give us their wisdom, even at their young age, is very, very important. So what I'm going to do is go around the table and just get a consensus to see if we're going to move forward and put on this resolution on our next agenda. And we'll start with the youngest person.
Yes, I absolutely am in favor of it.
As the third youngest, I'm in favor.
I want to say, before I give you my answer, I want to say that, speaking of the age of this council, when Jeremy came on, he's 25 years old. When you took the average and put his age in there, he almost didn't make a dent in the average age of our council. So the answer is yes.
I said before that I think we should have all ages represented in our city, so I said to support it.
Title 6 says you shouldn't mention your age. It's a qualification that may be discriminatory.
All right, so we're going to move this to the next meeting on February.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come back again.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it.
But I am in favor.
Now you know what you know.
Emily,
When you tell Ann tonight.
Emily, where did you go? Hope you harvest, sweetheart.
No, I very much appreciate being able to come.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the communication portion of our agenda, and we'll start with the first person, Michael Lindemann. And you have 5 minutes to address the council and give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michael Lindemann. I live at 22116 Point Inn. Just before I get started, this Millennium thing is brilliant in my opinion, just because it offers some benchmarks against which things can be measured. And the brilliance of it is it encourages transparency in the government, because they want to get younger kids in the government. They're saying, how do you post these things? How do you get these things out? And older people can benefit from that as well. About 10 times a day, my dogs would look intensely out the window and utter a lowly growl. Upon getting my attention, they would get more excited, pacing in front of the patio door and growling louder. They were furious that a squirrel had dared to enter their backyard. Oftentimes I would let them out and they would dash after the trespasser, only to have him scoot up a tree. And beneath that tree, my protectors would pace around in frustration, occasionally looking up as if to say, you come down here and fight fairly. Try as they might, these champions of the animal kingdom never got within 50 feet of their sworn enemy, except once. It was a warm summer afternoon, and I was walking with my friends in the woods when there was a sudden crack, then a swoosh, and then another swoosh, as something fell through the forest canopy. Thud. A squirrel on top of his most recent leafy perch landed in front of us. He lay there unconscious for a brief moment. As I pointed and exclaimed to my bewildered companions, "Squirrel!" One dog looked at me confused as the other hesitantly sniffed the motionless creature. The stunned squirrel gained consciousness after a few moments, noticed his predicament, and shot off to the nearest tree. 5 years of relentlessly pursuing squirrels, and these two clowns couldn't even recognize the quarry when it was close enough to bite them. A man walks into a police department and says, "Officer, the hooker I just hired stole my car." I wish this were the introduction to humorous quip, but disgustingly enough, it's a true story. And where do I find out about this? In the news under the headline, "Southfield Auto Theft on the Rise." The takeaway then provided is that prostitution is still illegal, not that it is illegal and will not be tolerated. I'm unaware of any referendums in the legislature to change the status of the laws concerning prostitution, and thus find the association of the word "still" with the solicitation of prostitution offensive, as I believe it implies that this offense is understandably not well known, or not a very important crime. Perhaps I'm a bit nitpicky, but continuing with this inclination, allow me to add one additional point. The takeaway further states that the risk of having your car stolen is one of the reasons prostitution is illegal. Now let me tell you the reasons I think a moral and conscientious police force should give to the public and to this car theft victim as to why not to pick up women off the street and pay them for sex. 1, you will have your name and picture in the newspaper. 2, you'll be cited for solicitation of prostitution and for transporting of prostitution. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact legal terminology for that. I didn't have time to look it up. 3, until we verify the age of this girl, we will do all we can to ensure that you're added to the list of registered sex offenders. And 4, since your car was being used by the owner for the commission of a crime when it was stolen, we'll do all we can to help your insurance company deny any claim of loss and furthermore to raise the insurance rate. I'm outraged when I read in the papers that since Southfield is centrally located, it can be expected that by far the most arrests and human trafficking should occur here.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. My garden has the most fertile tilled and watered soil, therefore it should develop the most weeds. Thus I'm vigilant about pulling them out before they take root. I demand the same attitude of vigilance concerning sex slavery. If you need more resources to combat this, then ask. And ask again. Complacencies or excuses I find both morally reprehensible and professionally negligent. I also find it embarrassing to have the FBI come into the city to make an arrest, but thank God they did, and hopefully the woman exchanging hits of crack for sex last year has found help. The newspaper article on this mentions other prostitutes working in the hotel, and that the pimp was on his way to pick up 2 more girls for his undercover agent. I'd like to know what happened to them. I'd also like to know that about all the Mr. X's who visited this girl all night long. Again, I'd also like to see them paraded in front of newspapers, and that's the least I'd like to have seen done to them. In my opinion, it's raining squirrels in Southfield, and I want to know that something's being done about it. Thank you very much.
Pamela Gerald.
Good evening. Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. The definition to best practice. Best practice is a business buzzword. It is a method or technique that has consistently shown results superior to those achieved with other means, and that is used as a benchmark. Madam Mayor, you are absolutely correct, you and Councilman Moss. Used to maintain quality as an alternative to mandatory legislative standards and can be based on self-assessment or benchmarking. Again, you are correct, Madam Mayor. Best practice, for example, is a feature of accredited management standards such as ISO 9000 and ISO 14001. I want to thank the Highway Administration and MDOT for finally stepping up to the plate and demanding more racial equality for cities that are getting federal dollars. Residents have heard me say it's time for a change. I said it all 2012 and 2013. Maybe that change is finally going to come. And real quickly, because I know that I only have 5 minutes, the audio is horrible in here. It's such an echo and a reverb. Hopefully Comcast can do something about that. I heard you guys talking about the INET, and the fact that you felt that Comcast should maintain and provide it for free and it should be in the contract. I think you guys have been so unfair to Comcast. And you've been so unfair to Comcast because in 2006, when you started the negotiations with UVerse and you gave them the franchise agreement, Public Act 480 of 2006 says that when another company comes in after the incumbent, they have to provide the same channel capability, 15, 16, 17, and 18, public access, education, and government. This city allowed UVerse to come in here and for 3 years charge their customers 3.94% for PEG, and you didn't even have it. In that agreement, that franchise agreement, it says nothing about the city having to pay any additional monies. The city of Southfield paid almost $9,500 for a T1 cable just to be able to provide council meetings. Now, what about public access and education? So I think you guys should remove the word obligated, and if you paid AT&T for their T1, I think you should pay Comcast for your INET. Thank you.
Next person is Mr. Doug Benjamin. Here. will go to Mr. Gerard Mullen.
Madam President, my name is Gerard Mullen. My address is Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037. Tonight, I'd like to talk about the proposal to change Rule 5. That is, to limit a person's time to address this council to 3 minutes. I think this is a terrific idea, and I'd like to extend it to each and every council member. Less is more. Let me give you an example. On Thursday, November 19th, 1863, the great orator of the day, Edward Everett, spoke for 2 hours to a crowd of 15,000 folks gathered in a field in Pennsylvania that day. Everett was followed by a second speaker who spoke a mere 260 words. Today, every school child knows those 260 words. Of course, I'm speaking of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. The greatness of Lincoln's speech was immediately recognized by Everett, who wrote the president a note the next day. Quote, "I should be glad if I could flatter myself that I came as near to the central idea in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." Unquote. Less is more. Please note, I've tried to emulate honest aid tonight by keeping my presentation under 2 minutes. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. And P.S. The 16th President will be celebrating his 205th birthday in just 2 days from today. Happy birthday, Mr. Lincoln. Happy birthday.
Next person on the agenda is Ms. Stephanie English.
Stephanie English, 28735 San Carlos, Southfield, Michigan. Very quickly, I may hold off on 2 of the issues until the next meeting. I had 3 things I wanted to talk about. One was to recommend a citizen volunteer group for the code department. I want to speak with Mr. Witkowski when he returns from vacation, and Maria Calhoun, about the opportunity to have a code ambassador team made up of citizens who have always supported Mayor Lawrence's coffee clutches when she speaks about code enforcement issues in the springtime. A lot of the neighbors or residents that go to that, it's usually a packed seminar, and a lot of the discussion has come among us that perhaps the code department could benefit from a volunteer ambassador group. Second thing, I'm hoping that the council will look at recognizing the public work employees who have been responsible for salting and clearing our streets, and it goes down to the line level, the truck drivers, those people that have been handling the complaints. I have stopped several of the gentlemen that drive the salt trucks to shake their hand and thank them. I know that a lot of complaints have been coming in about the potholes. Some of my neighbors have called me. I know that they actually called the mayor's office. But I think that even though they're working overtime, it looks as though that they're going to have a massive amount of monetary gain in terms of overtime. But these people have to have some tremendous sacrifice in terms of quality time at home, fatigue levels being off of the chart, and just overall health. But it seems that they have low morale because they are not feeling appreciated by the general council at large and getting more criticism. So I'm hoping that you guys consider some type of commendation for this team. It's been a rough winter, and I think that in light of our resources, they've done an excellent job. Last of all, unfortunately, I have a complaint about how I was treated by the building department when I went to get the findings of fact for the 12-mile Southfield zoning board meeting. I followed all of the procedures from the legal notice that was put in the January 19th paper. I showed up Monday, February 3rd to get the packet, and I reported this to Mayor Lawrence and to Jeremy Moss that I was stonewalled. I had to meet immense hurdles for a simple process. You were supposed to come in, have access to that material up until 4 p.m. on Tuesday. I was told I had to request a FOIA, which I know is incorrect. I was embarrassed. I was demeaned. I was told by employees that the men in the back, the wizards, because I felt like Dorothy trying to get the attention of the Wizard of Oz, and I believe that it was an intentional block because it was me. I was told I was going to have to get a FOIA report. One of the employees was very stressed in terms of having to tell me this. I asked for the gentlemen that run our departments, the 3 that run our planning and building departments. She came back out and just said, "You're not going to have access to speak with them. Here's their card." I was told that I could not make copies. When one of the employees finally overruled their directive, and she said, "You are supposed to have access to this." She gave me the folder, but she looked around and she said, "But they said you can't make copies. Any notes you take are going to have to be handwritten." Now, I have requested things from that desk before. I've got big site plans here. I've got a GPS report. I simply paid for the copies. I was told I was going to have to handwrite them, and it took me an hour and a half to write. Here's each part. If I just grabbed some sheets that were on the wall and had to handwrite the information instead of receiving the copies. Some kind of ism was conducted towards me. Even if I have a contrary opinion to what the 12-mile Southfield decision is going to be made, I should not be treated in a disparate or discriminating way because my opinion differs from the leaders of these departments. I'm intelligent, I'm articulate, I follow the rules, I have spoken at this council in a very, very diplomatic way, and I believe that it's so deplorable. I believe I owed an apology from the department heads because I was embarrassed and I was demeaned. There were 2 white gentlemen standing next to me who got access to records, and copies were made for them. I did not cause a stink, but I was upset, and I'm looking around because I felt discriminated against and I was treated in a disparate manner, and I'm one of your loyal citizens that follows the rules, and I'm reporting it directly. It was the leaders for the planning department and the buildings department. Giving me a card is not right. And then I got an email back from one of the leaders telling me in a terse way that if I wanted a copy, next time I should give them a stamp so that they can mail it to me.
Time is up. Thank you very much. The next individual has asked to speak this evening, and I will allow him 5 minutes, and that's Mr. Ron Scott, if he's still in the audience. Give us your name and business address.
Okay. My name is Ron Scott, and my business address is 220 Bagley, B-A-G-L-E-Y, Suite 808, Detroit, Michigan, 48226. I'm the spokesperson for the Detroit Coalition Against Police Brutality, and our major effort is peace zones for life. We're attempting to minimize violence amongst citizens. My co-worker, Ms. Hines, Sandra Hines, is with me tonight. I just wanted to introduce her. The circumstances are is that I have a certain amount of levity tonight because I'm so glad I watch your council meetings all the time on cable, and you're certainly the center of it all. I mean, it's a contrast and a benefit in democracy. And I want to thank you, Madam President, and also Mayor Lawrence, and also Councilman Moss for referring me. And I'd like to thank the 2 of you, specifically the 2 women in leadership, who stood with the chief today and made an eloquent statement about what it means to have the kind of leadership that you have here in this city. And I want to encourage you to continue along with those of us who've spoken up about the death of Mr. Mackenzie Cochran and the security guards. And we had 5 points. I've sent them to Mayor Lawrence. I'll send them to you. But basically, just if I can paraphrase, we want to have an oversight committee of some type established to see what happens in malls and other places like that, so that we can evaluate not only in terms of the state process that's going on to establish what security guards do, but on a local level to look at it. Southfield has been very big in the commercial arena, and many of the young people that work with us, they go to Northland Mall. And we would be more than happy to encourage them to provide whatever information they can about what happened. I told the chief that. Furthermore, we would like for an interface with the owners of Northland LLC. I think it's been very debilitating that they have not interacted. Maybe they should speak with the council about how they're going to talk to citizens to allay their fears, concerns, and indignation about what happened. In addition to that, the state legislators, which are currently doing that, they are working on a process, and also, like I said, we would work and provide information to the police department, which they need. Finally, just let me say this, that I think that at this particular time, it's Black History Month. Several of the things that I've heard you talk about, I fought in Title VI and Title VII in 1968. I didn't know that Mayor Lawrence and I both. I worked with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, and she with the EEOC. Ms. Hines' mother fought for that 40 years ago. I'm glad that Mr. Moss is here. I'm glad that we're talking about the whole question of young people, African Americans, women, and so on. The life of Mr. Cochran is important, and that's why people are speaking out. I urge you to continue to speak out on a consistent basis, to exercise the leadership to let people know that this death will not fall through the cracks, because it relates to all of us. Somebody asked me today, and I'll conclude with this, whether it was about a black person being killed. It is, in one sense. But I said it's about a human being losing life. And the woman that asked me was a 50-year-old white woman. She said, I saw my son, who can be arrogant. And let me finish by saying, look into, in terms of ADA, the questions about mental health. Because if what happened, we really need to evaluate mental health procedures as these security individuals are chosen and how they're dealt with in terms of conflict resolution, de-escalation, which all officers know. They have 10 points of escalation, and these people are not trained to do that. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight, and I'm glad to be in Southfield again, and I'm glad to be in the mix. Councilman Patazzi did not disappoint me tonight.
And I will give you the items that you gave me to the clerk, and I'll make sure that
Thank you very much, and I'm a baby boomer too.
All right, Councilman, any other items that should be presented this evening?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hold on.
Thank you. Two items. I don't know if Shelley's still here, but perhaps they can talk to Mr. Zorn about this. Every time a tax abatement comes before the city of Southfield, we always make a point at the council meeting, be sure to talk to the Southfield Career Center, be sure to talk to, our neighborhood services officials, so that, when you're hiring Southfield residents, if you're bringing in people. Is there a way to formalize that within the process so that it's actually, in the documentation? I love that we're doing it after the fact. I love that we have that conversation. In fact, since I've been elected, every time that's come before council, it's been part of the discussion. I would just really like to see that as a part of the official documents for tax abatement, if that's possible, legal, whatever.
Our current contract has been tested in the courts, but Shelley, Ms. Freeman and I have had conversations. Well, we meet what the courts have held up. Why not try to memorialize what council,
right, exactly.
and kind of those extras that they will. And we could take a look at that, and even perhaps in our economic development committee to broaden that. We've particularly had the conversation about housing and outreach to let people know housing opportunities here. And we've done a couple things, but we could, could be almost an addendum to the agreement. We've got the one agreement that is the state's basic agreement that works, but let us, come up with some type of addendum, part of the resolution. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that was my curiosity as we had the last Marshall McLennan tax abatement come before council. We brought it up, but I would just like to see that that's the expectation even going into the process, that that's what the city of Southfield would require. The second thing, and it's a response to Ms. English, I absolutely, and I've told her this, I disagreed with her assessment of 12 Mile Southfield Road. We did not agree on why she wanted the documents. However, she had a right to the documentation. And how do FOIAs work within the city? Is it each department makes a determination? Because I know in other governmental bodies, there's a FOIA officer, one singular person or department. And I don't know that that's how Southfield, is it how Southfield operates?
Our Southfield,
Okay.
we have a coordinator, a FOIA coordinator, which is the clerk.
Okay. Because there has to be kind of an across-the-board
I do think
standard.
this is different. This is a notice procedure. I mean, this was, I think, what I was hearing was the packet for that evening's meeting.
Yeah.
It was just the agenda and the backup material, really, which is not a FOIA. People have a right to have.
So there's got to be some sort of follow-up with that. If she had to, sit there and write it by hand, that's not right.
That should have been.
We may have a staff training issue in legal world. That was my note.
Okay, I just want to see some follow-up to that.
Uniformity and how that's handled.
Because if it's happening to somebody who knows the process and is a regular council goer, I don't want anyone else to have a hiccup along the way.
That was going to be my topic, too. For over 30 years, I was the FOIA coordinator for the school district, and it was our practice never, if it was a reasonable request of a meeting document, minutes, they were provided free to a Southfield resident. Where we charged was you get these FOIA requests from attorneys that throw out very wide nets, and they want 20 years of purchasing records or something like that. But for a taxpayer, and we're not talking volumes and volumes, but we're talking some specific documents, and they're public documents. I believe it should be the policy of this city to turn the documents over. And to stonewall, that is just the antithesis of what the law is about. And that law has been on the books since the mid-1970s. And the law is very specific. It is a little bit of knowledge you have to have of the things that you don't have to share. But most of what we do should be transparent, and I too disagreed with Ms. English on this issue. But I certainly think, and told her in a telephone conversation, but I certainly think, and I'm just finding out about this tonight, but I certainly think she should have had those documents without an argument. I'm really upset to hear this, quite honestly. It's not the way to engage your public.
Mayor Lawrence? Yes, all of us have been inundated about the road. And I can tell you, I personally drove down Greenfield Road, and it is awful. Any of us who watched the news have seen it. I wanted to put out here to the council that we request Greenfield Road to be closed. The reason being, they're going to shift traffic for the construction. They can't seem, for whatever reason, to put cold patch in there. And so I think that they should close that side of the road. I mean, it is really, really bad. It's not bumpy. I mean, and we don't have to pay for the damage to the car because it's not our road, but it's our residents. And, at minimum, and we talked about this, you need to have a slow down, bad road ahead or something.
Call the county.
But when you're driving, all of a sudden you hit it, it's like, oh my goodness. But I think that we as a council should say close that side of the road. It's really bad. I mean, we're bumpy and lumpy on Evergreen Road, but it can't compare to what Greenfield Road is.
It's on both sides too, not just south.
No, it's just
No,
on
just on one side.
Just one side.
Side is not bad.
Yeah.
What side is
The
that?
Oak Park side.
Well, you're talking about up to 10 Mile. Come between 10 and 11, and you will see the potholes.
Oh, yeah, it's on both sides.
Yes, it is on both sides.
But on that stretch between 8 and 9 is like every 2 feet, you boom, boom.
Didn't the other community over there, or the road, somebody did something to Evergreen Road on their side. They did some work over there. I thought they repaved it.
I don't know, but I think we need to close it.
It's horrible. I have to drive it.
Where are we with putting those signs on?
I thought the sign was up, like you said, because the emails that I saw last week. That's why
I saw a draft of the sign.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
I don't know if the county came back and said, no, you can't put it up or not, but I thought our sign shop finished the sign last week, so I'm a little surprised. I need to get on the phone and find out why the sign didn't go up. I mean, the emails going back and forth last week, I thought the sign was already, it was out of the shop and going up. Now, I don't know if this is where Oakland County Road Commission said, not your jurisdiction, you can't put the sign up. And if that's the case, no one's told me that, I need to make a few phone calls. So.
But, you know, I sent a letter to the county, from the mayor's office saying, I want a 24-hour response. That is the common response to repairing roads, and that's not happening. I know it's the thoughts of Councilman Patasi and I understand that. I understand that the fact that you can put that hot patch in there and within 6 hours it could be gone. I know that. So if that's the case, then close the road. Have all of you driven down?
Oh, yeah. If you can, it's impossible.
What about the businesses, you know?
Well, you're gonna have the other side of the road open.
Or
Because
just
someone brought up that there was an emergency vehicle going down Greenfield Road, and it had to slow down in the park. And I just thought, oh my God, there was a patient in there.
Was it north or south, which is where they're going?
It's all south. You should go over there, Tom. Look.
I've been there, I live there. I know how bad it is.
Between 9 and 8?
I've been,
You don't
yeah,
live
but
between that
even
and
if you come between 10 and 11,
We're talking about 9 and 8.
I know, but the whole thing is bad, all the way up to 11 miles.
Well, it's not all bad. I drive up there all the time. But it's terribly, it's terrible between 8 and 9, and about 200 yards north of 9 Mile Road.
Yeah.
And then, but the northbound lane of Greenfield is completely different. It looked like it was put in by two different construction companies.
They had a report on Channel 4, which is broadcast to everybody, that they compared it to a war zone and said it was the worst road in Metro Detroit. That stretch, 8 to 9 miles.
WDET too.
Right. All right, Ms. Seymour does have this one.
Thank you.
What are we gonna do?
We'll come back. Yeah, we forgot about Ms. Seymour.
Okay. We recently lost our city administrator on very short notice, and that position is open. And we have Mr. Zorn, who's the deputy city administrator, but he has no authority at this point in time to do anything. And I think it would be in our best interest to appoint him acting city administrator, because we have positions to fill, we have problems to solve. He has no authority over staff right now whatsoever. While Mr. Surratt was in the hospital, he did. But now that he's passed, he has no, as I understand it, no authority really to take action. So I'm requesting that tonight we appoint him acting city administrator, and we have so much to be accomplished with staff, and staff would not expect to have to respond to him in the position that he's in, because he's kind of in limbo. So that's what I'm recommending, that we appoint him acting city administrator, and let's get some of this stuff done, and then whether you want to do a search or whatever you want to do, that's a different issue, but we've got to have things done, and we've got to start moving forward. So that's what I'm proposing, and I'm even suggesting that we do a Rule 10 and do it tonight.
Mr. Frazier is actually on.
Yeah, I had another topic I was going to talk about, so I talk about both. You know, I agree with Councilwoman Seymour that we need to do something. We need to show the community that the council is alive and well. I disagree with her that Fred doesn't have authority to do things, because I think charter says that the deputy administrator takes the role of the administrator when the administrator can't act. So it's part of the charter. So he has all the authority that he needs, but I think we do need to take action to show that we're not just sitting on our hands and letting things happen as they are. The subject that I was going to talk about is, around the table tonight, we talked about getting involved with young people in the schools and all that. I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but there's a partnership council that businesses, the city, and the schools work with, and it's been going on for umpty years. And one of the ways that you can volunteer for this partnership council is, and anybody can do it, it just doesn't have to be city council people or administrative people, or you can volunteer to be a celebrity reader for the schools. They're always looking for people to go into the schools and read to the young people, and while you're in there, it's only from 30 to 45 minutes. While you're in there, you get an opportunity to talk about your career and what you do for a career, what it takes to be part of your career, so that the young people have an opportunity to think about things. And I'm part of that. I'm part of the Partnership Council, and have been for a number of years. And I'm also a celebrity reader. So it's in the elementary schools, and you pick out a book, and that's appropriate for that age group, and go into class and read to the students and answer some questions, and you're done. That's it. Thank you.
And Mr. Stiles.
I also support giving Fred a title of acting city administrator. I think that we should, I'm not in a hurry to do a search. I would like to see, give Fred some time to, we're still a bit in shock. It's odd not to hear Jim at the table after so many years, but and I think for the sake of the whole city, for the staff, that it's part of moving forward, that we give Fred the title of acting city administrator, and as we did with Jim. Jim was acting city administrator, I think, for 2 years before we conferred the title of city administrator on him. I don't know that we have to wait that long, but I would suggest that we allow Fred 8 months or so, let's say September, before we make a decision of whether we go for a search or not. I think it's only right, and I think it would help kind of heal over the loss that we've all been through. So I support Ms. Seymour's recommendation, and I would also support Rule 10 this evening.
Well, I like to weigh in on this one a bit. I believe that being deputy city administrator, you have the authority to run the city. By charter, we're our city administrators. I think you've done a great job, and I think you have solidified this council, and I believe that you're doing a great job. But my concern is that, and I know you make a fine acting city administrator, I just want to make sure that we're not, haste doesn't make waste, is that we go on a fast track to put you in that position, and then the council says, you've been acting, now let's give it to you. I want to be fair to the community, that, you know, and I do agree with who you are. I agree that you're doing a good job. But just to be fair to the community, to at some point in time, do a search. It can be a local search. And the best man will always come to the top. And just looking at your qualifications, I dare say can't even think of anybody that's out there that will come close to what you've done to the city and what you're doing. Qualifications and definitely your knowledge. So that's just where I am. I think you've been given the authority to run the city. You have the authority to run the city. But I just like to see us slow down. It's not that we're not functioning. And it's not that I don't believe that the employees aren't firm that you are the decision maker. That's where I am. But if this council wants to place him in that position, you won't get an argument.
Sure.
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Patasi. I think that the president has been set some time ago. We had acting city administrators. When Pete Cristiano was made acting when the city manager left. So it goes way back, and I think it works better by having an acting city administrator. It gives, I guess, a certain amount of I guess that things are moving internally as well as externally. And I don't think that the job and the role mean that much difference. But sometimes a title gives you a little hedge on authority that you wouldn't have as a deputy. And I strongly feel that Fred is right for that position to be appointed to that position. And I don't want a time element on it, though. I don't want just specifically for 90 days, 80 days, whatever. I mean, it'd be at the will of council. But I think that Fred should be given that. And I don't know, it just kind of smooths things over. You know, we all miss Jim. It's tough to, like Ken said, it's tough to sit here without him. But you know, we're here acting on behalf of the city, and the city's got to move on irrespective of who leads. And there's so many things that I think that have to be done that would give him kind of the authority, so to speak. I mean, I think that in this budgetary time, we have to evaluate different departments and make certain changes. And I think that it gives credence to the person who has to make the decision on what's going to happen, that little extra piece of power, and I'll call it power. But it's just something that I just feel very strong about. I mean, I go back to Pete Cristiano, I go back to Joe Suchik, I go back, I mean, we have 5, 6, 7 different acting administrators over a period of time, and we'll have a lot more in the future, because you know, in Pete's case, there was, 4 deputies. You know, they say, which one's going to wield the car, and I think it just makes the organization stronger. I just have to add that I really strongly believe that.
Yeah, I don't have anything really to add. Mr. Fracassi summed up my thoughts, except to say that the title is now unfortunately appropriate because he's nobody's deputy at the moment. And so the title is the most appropriate thing we can confer upon Fred, and if you're ready to accept Rule 10, I'll also move.
Support.
We have a motion by Councilman Moss, supported by Councilman Cybers for Rule 10. All in favor?
Can I add, can I add something to the motion? I mean,
you can make a motion.
Rule 10 is...
Well, we've already approved the Rule 10, right? We voted on that. But I'd like to amend the motion that
No one made the motion yet. We just had a motion to a Rule 10. You're talking about amending the Rule 10.
No.
We didn't have a vote.
Yeah,
No, I'm sorry, okay, I'm getting ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. When Jim Charette was made acting city administrator, he got a 10% bump in his pay. And I think, given the tremendous responsibility that Fred will be taking on, I think he deserves to get that 10% bump in his pay. And I would recommend that as we give him the title of acting city administrator, we also give him that 10% bump, because it's certainly deserved.
As Sue, city attorney, when you do that, don't you have to have a document which makes a person an acting administrator, and then also have, an amount that,
Like a contract?
well, it's not a contract, I guess, I don't know, I'm asking Sue the best way to handle it.
We did look at what was the situation when Jim went from his position to the acting city administrator. And there was, in general, kind of and I think Lori's still here.
Yep.
There's kind of just been this, 10 to 15% range when people go into a management position kind of as an acting. And so somewhere between 10 and 15. We looked at where Jim was, he was given 10%. And so in terms of precedent, that's kind of where the range has been, and that's what was given to Jim. So I don't believe there was an actual contract for him as acting. It just, his title was acting city administrator, but he was given a 10% increase to his existing deputy salary.
It was a
That has to be an action taken by council.
Correct. You would
I'm
establish
looking at
that.
Laurie because we just did that for Laurie.
Right.
And we did that for your department also.
Right.
And
So we
so,
come from council to approve that.
so then the next thing is to ask that a document be produced then.
It would be just a PA form through HR. Correct.
So, there's no motion on the floor. I move that Fred Zorn be appointed to the title of acting city administrator, and that, I guess, the council determine the increase in his position as he takes on the extra duties of the administrator. I don't know what that percentage would be, but I guess that's open to council. What is...
Well, the only thing we had to draw from, we had this range that,
Yeah.
again, of 10 to 15%, and then specifically with Jim Charette, when he was made acting, it was a 10% increase.
So then I'll move the 10% then with the...
I'll support that motion.
We have a motion by Councilman Pataki, supported by Councilwoman Moore to appoint Mr. Zorn, or change the title from deputy to acting city administrator with a 10% increase in base salary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Fred.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And Arson?
I don't know. I don't know.
We need an effective date.
Effective today.
Yeah, effective day.
All right, is there anything else that we brought to the table?
I think it's, if you'll permit me, I think it's incumbent on Fred that he shed some of the stuff that he was doing as deputy administrator, and not try to do both the deputy administrator job and the administrator's job.
And public work.
Yes, right, because that could just wear him down. So we got to find a way to relieve some of the work off his shoulders.
Madam Chair, and all due respect, I think that Fred, like any corporation, can come before us.
Well, absolutely.
And say, this is what the status is of those priorities, like the audit, the budget, public works, whatever you're working on, the nonprofit, and come to us and say, now this is what I'm facing, and I'm gonna need help in this particular thing and support from council to buffer up the organization. I know what you're saying, but I just want to make that very clear that I expect Fred to come forward.
You're right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you,
As soon as
and
possible.
I expect him to do
Because
that.
you've got a budget,
Yeah.
April 1st, I think the mayor gets the budget, mayor, is that correct? You know, I mean, we're running out of time, I mean, this thing is all crunch time.
Well,
And one guy can't possibly do it, otherwise Jim would do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would expect him to do that, bring his plan to us. I just want to make sure that we're prepared to listen to it and take some action, because it's real easy to say, well, we just gave you a 10% raise, so go back and get it done. Yeah, money doesn't equal.
I have a lot of faith in this council that this will work out.
Yeah,
so.
I've been around too.
Pardon?
I've been around here.
Well, you know, I'm going to talk positively on it. I think that the city's got to come together.
Absolutely.
And surround Fred, we give him the help and support that he needs to get the city going. I mean, it's very important.
We know what to do.
I want to go back to my road question. Do you want to, as you say, figure it out and come back with a plan? I'm sick and tired of getting beat up on the road.
If this body wants to take a resolution, I'm
Yeah.
happy to take it to the Oakland, I'm meeting with them tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Madison Heights.
Let's take a consensus, because we do want to keep everything.
Which one?
So do we,
The road?
my question is, he's meeting with them tomorrow. Do we want him to put on the table the possibility of closing that road, diverting traffic?
So let's take a consensus. Are you in favor of closing the road down?
I guess so. I haven't even thought of that as an option. I mean, is that something that they're even are we in the
I don't
capacity to do that? I mean,
They have to.
That's right, so let's take the consensus.
What do you do about the business?
Yeah, there's too much
You're
floating
gonna
around there.
divert the traffic for construction
Well, where?
for the whole summer, on the other side. I mean, but that's the
Make
question.
They're going to close it down. Let's take a consensus from the council, because it's the council that directs the administrator. So we can keep the line straight, so we won't have a lot of crisscross, because he's already doing a lot. So do you want the roads closed down as the mayor's giving a directive?
I'm not giving a directive.
No, but I'm saying we need a consensus from the council.
Can I change it? Can he present this as one of the things?
option?
As an option.
If I may, to say to Oakland County's road leadership tomorrow morning, that this issue is so large that, you know, we want the road closed. I mean, that's what it takes to get them to move off of center.
Right.
Council, you've approved that road being reconstructed and put one of the largest matches, but there's no interim solution between now and when that construction starts. I'm afraid that, you know, there'll be a patch that'll make it through the summer, but I see this being not led, and the reconstruction being late summer, fall. So they'll come in and patch it, but I don't think they hear how serious this is. I know, you know, when we're told, when they won't even accept our offer to go in and cold patch on that road, I'm outraged. I mean, we're willing to, you know, put our limited resources and money in there, and they say no? It's hard to fathom.
Okay, but I still want to stay with what's on the table. So we can
So-
keep our acting city administrator director.
So I say yes to that, and then I will add on to that we need to put a press release out. We need to add in the fact that we are not even allowed to do it. You know, even if we wanted to, had the resources, because I want to combat everything that I'm getting the same calls, emails, seeing the same reports on Fox 2 and Channel 4, and I want there to be a full court press from our, City Hall that we're not even allowed to put construction on the road. So yes.
And you will find that statement on our website right now.
Yeah.
And I believe it was hitting Facebook. And I need to go loop around with Michael Mannion to put that question. But, so that we can't access, that we can't go on, and that we're not even allowed to make those repairs.
Yeah.
Is on the website right now.
Great.
But if you want a press release, we can take it.
I think press release is the way to go, too.
I would just add, it's been on Facebook, and it's been on Neighborhood Link, all these people chiming in about it. And then WDET also said avoid Greenfield. But I'm fine with this. My only concern is the businesses. There's some fast food restaurants there. You know, if you can work it out.
Mr. Frazier?
Yeah, I think they need to do whatever they need to do to keep the traffic flowing, keep the businesses going, but, you know, that road is like a jigsaw puzzle before you start to put it together. You know, so the answer is yes, they need to do what they need to do.
Yeah, we're talking about between 8 and 9, is that correct? Is everybody understand?
Yeah.
Okay. From 10, I'm speaking about both sides of Greenfield, but Greenfield on the other side, not on the Southfield side, between 10 and 11 has got potholes so big. They're huge. I mean, and they were all patched and everything has come out. And I drive, you know, you can't get out if you want to go north. There's no other way you can go unless you go west and come back. You can't, I'm just saying, it's so bad. I really need
So
somebody.
what do you think, yes or no?
Yes or what?
Yes or no to what's on the table?
Well, I'm saying yes to that, but I would also like some attention given to that part between 10 and 11. When you get past 11, the road is fine on both sides because everybody wants to get to 11 Mile and down the freeway. But on the other side, on the opposite side of Southfield, going north on Greenfield, between 10 and 11, it is horrible. That's where Kmart is, and it's really bad. It's really bad, and it's getting worse.
John, in comparison.
Well, these are not small holes. They've got worse.
Is your answer yes?
Yes to what? 8 and 9? Yeah, I said that.
Oh, all right.
I already said that.
You know, I talked to the mayor earlier, and I said that I would like to have the threat that we will close it if they do not do anything. We have put up $1 million for reconstruction, which is not our obligation. And I answered the media, because I got emails from everybody also, and I specifically told them, take time I educate you, that all the odd numbers are ours. 9, 11, and 13 going east-west. The only one going north-south is Inkster, Beach, Franklin, and Evergreen. Everything else belongs to somebody else. We do Lasher Road, 10 Mile Road, and 12 Mile Road, and we get paid to clear them with snow, but not maintenance. And so somebody's got to send that message to the media so they stop putting us in the middle about Southfield Road.
Yes.
I mean, our roads are great. We redid Inkster Road. We redid Franklin Road. You know, we're doing Evergreen Road. I mean, we did 12 Mile Road. You know, we paid for Lasher Road. It's the city is doing its part. But everything's blowing up in the residential neighborhoods as well. All right? There's no money in majors. There's no money in locals. All right? But that's why I asked for a bond issue for at least 5 years and get some of this stuff done. But anyway, I just think that ignorance, everybody thinks that, you know, the media, it blames the city. But, you know, you can't put coal pack in because you got water and you got ice. And you throw hot coal pack into that hole, you melt the ice, and then it's sitting on water. There's no adhesive. There's no adhesive. I was talking to Mike about it, and I said, Mike, you know, there's no way it's going to stick. You know, we have the machine that blows, you know, and puts that emulsion in there, and that might do a better job than what putting hot coal pack, because hot coal pack is not hot when it gets in the hole. And so I don't know how they're going to do it, but they have to resolve it. I feel sorry for those businesses. I do not. They've had a rough winter as it is. They had a bad retail holiday season, and I sure don't want to put more on them. I mean, everybody knows retail took a big hit, and everybody went and bought computers. You know.
So you're saying yes?
Okay. I'm saying the threat of yes, you know, they're being negotiated yes.
And I'm saying yes as well. In fact, my daughter sent me a Instagram, and it says when you hit a pothole on Greenfield between 8 and 9 Mile, the whole car falls in. So, I mean, it's out there.
Yeah, but I might add, what is it, Northland Drive is the first, where Michigan is, from Michigan in to the expressway, on that service drive, you've got Greenfield Road too. I mean, you talked about, I can't even go that way anymore. I mean, it's, so I don't know is that state or county?
The service drive, that is ours, and it is scheduled for resurfacing. I need to double, it might be 20.
Do we do all the service drives?
Yes.
Yes. I
Well,
think that is wrong.
Yeah. And, especially when they redid Northwestern US 10, they used all those trucks with all that heavy crap in it and hauled on our service drives, and broke all our service drives. And so they had a nice expressway, but they screwed up all our service drives, and that's why it's all busted up.
Right, the one in front of the Marriott Hotel, terrible.
Okay, so you have your direction, and you'll keep us posted.
That's the one they drove on.
Something else to be brought up. Being that.
Good night.